Ladies and gentlemen, here to present Magic 2.0, please welcome Doug McKenzie.
Good morning. Welcome to Signal. Before I begin, I'd actually like to test everybody's signal here in the audience. So please pull out your phones. Everybody pull out your phones. And turn your ringer on, not off, on. And make sure your volume is set to maximum. Fun, right? This is not your conventional show. We're going to test your signal. I'm going to send out a text message to everybody here in the room, okay? When you get that message, please do not open the message yet. We're all going to read them together at the end, okay? So please do not open the message until the very end. We're going to start to hear those messages coming through. It'll be quite fun. There we go. First one. We're also going to need your calculators. We're going to try something with a magical version of Twilio's two-factor authentication. So please open your calculators. On the iPhone, it's quite easy. Just swipe up, click the calculator button. On Android and everything else, search for calculator. Got it? Some Apple fans in the audience. Perfect. So clear out your calculators, and we're going to add together 6 individual numbers that are unique to you. That way, everyone has a personal total at the end. Okay? So clear out your calculators. I'll give you the numbers now. So everything's clear? The first number, look at that magical transition. The age you'll be by the end of 2015. So it might not be the age you are now, but by the end of 2015, what age you're going to be. Should be 2 digits, I would hope. Got it? So 2 digits, the age you'll be by the end of 2015. That is not the age in your dating profile either, so be honest, all right? Hit plus. The second number, the last 4 digits of your cell phone number, the number you're using, okay? So the last 4 digits of your number that you're using, type those in. If that number begins with a 0, ignore the 0, just type in the ones that don't have the 0 in it. Got it? Again, hit plus. The third number, the year of an important event in your life, 4 digits. Got it? So it could be an anniversary. Don't choose your own birthday, but it could even be the year you fell in love with Twilio. It's a good one. Got it? Again, hit plus. The next number, the year you were born, again, 4 digits for that year. You got it? All 4 digits. Plus. The current month, easy, 5. You can copy off your neighbor for that one if you like. And the final number is the number of years it's been since that important event. So if the event took place in the year 2000, it'll be 15 years ago. If it took place in 2012, 3 years ago. I'll give you guys a few seconds to calculate that if you need that. You got it? Perfect. Now everybody hit equals. And show that number to your neighbor. Make sure your number is in fact different from your neighbor's. You have a number that's based on choices that you've made, on numbers that are personal to you. Got it? And remember that number just for 1 second. Now open that message I sent you. Have a look. There we go. Perfect. You guys are all authenticated. All right. So I'd actually like to try something now with actually one person in the audience. So 1 person. So can I turn the highest lights on, please? Perfect. So I'm going to come down and pick out somebody. Somebody with a phone, please. And somebody with pockets, perhaps. Let me see. Everyone's avoiding eye contact for some reason. You're not invisible. I can see you. I can see you. So for example, let me see over here. Perfect. Come on up. Your name?
Elmer.
Perfect. What is it? Elmer. Nice to meet you. I'm Doug. Come on up. Everybody give Elmer a big round of applause. Perfect. Can you stand right here for me? Elmer, I have a table. Look at that. Magical spin. Look at that. I have a table. And do you have your phone, please? Pull out your phone and create a new text message. So open your messages. iPhone. I love you already. Create a new message. I'll give you the phone number. I'll type it in so it's quicker. That way you know I only have 1 phone number and not 52. Perfect. So 917-284-6333. I'm going to show that to the camera. Boom. Wait for it to focus. Come on, focus. I'll go further back. Got it. All right, perfect. So your phone, one phone number, one deck of cards, and a box we don't need. All right. And you can see all the cards are different. Fair? All different, 52 different cards. Got it? Elmer, do me a favor. Give the cards a cut. Perfect. And put one half on top of the other. So yeah, just complete the cut. Do it one more time. You know what? Let's make it crazy. Do it behind your back. That way I can't see where you're cutting and you don't even know where you're cutting. Is that fair? Fair? You know, keep it behind your back. Keep it behind your back. I won't even cheat. I won't look at the screen. Keep it behind your back. Cut it one more time. Makes it more impossible. And whenever you're ready, take the top card. Don't even look at it. Put the top card in your back pocket. That way you don't even know what the card is. Fair? So you have a card, again, that you don't even know. I'll take the deck. You have a card that you don't even know. And where's the camera? And again, it could have been any of these. Free choice. Fair? We're going to send a text message. We'll say, will you please name the card? Autocorrect. Name the card in my pocket. Fair? That's not me shaking. All right, got it? And we'll hit send. I'll let you do the honors. Please hit send. You got a response?
Yes.
Do me a favor, Elmer, read it out loud.
You have the Jack of Diamonds.
Go ahead, pull it out of your pocket. Have a look. Show the camera. Bam. There's my camera. Jack of Diamonds. That didn't go very far. Thank you, Elmer. Thank you very much. I'd like to try one more thing for you guys. I actually need 8 people from the audience. So again, house lights, please. 8 people. Let me see. Hand, perfect. That's 1. You guys want to come up? 2. 3, perfect. 4, please. 5, 6, 7 would be great. He's got the laptop open, thinks I can't see him there. And 8. Please join me on stage. Again, big round of applause for everybody. Up on stage. 8 people, please form a line. So if you come up on stage, starting, let me see, over here. Bam. 1. And just form a line straight across here, shoulder to shoulder. 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I miscount. 3, 6, 9. One person's got to go. Pick anybody. Oh, you're out. Sorry. Closest to the stairs. Give me a round of applause. Thank you. And Danny, we're going to use you for a little bit of help, if you will, please. Step over to the microphone. Now let me ask you, Danny, have we ever met before? By the way, that's how I knew. It's not really magic. Have we ever met before? Have we prearranged anything? Am I secretly employing you in any way?
Nope.
Shit. Thought it was the right guy. Striped sweater, glasses. We'll have to use you. If you guys could just take one step forward, please. And again, stand shoulder to shoulder. Perfect. You guys have done this before. And for all you binary fans in the audience, you've got a perfect boy, girl, boy, 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 girl, girl combination. Amazing. All right, I also brought with me an antique. An antique that's quite interesting because it's hard to find these days. Also known as the White Pages. This is the New York White Pages. Any New Yorkers in the audience? There we go. Any Brooklyners in the audience? There we go. So it's actually a Brooklyn White Pages. It has all the numbers for people in Brooklyn. It's also known as Google the Paper Edition. So Danny, I'm going to ask you here to open the phone book to any page. Any page.
do it?
Yeah, I'm going to show you how to do it. So any page. I have a paperclip marking a page at the moment. That doesn't really matter. So open to any page. And as we go through, we're going to test something. We're going to test two things. I picked you because you're wearing glasses.
Okay.
So just for example, what number does that say there? Ignore the 718, just starting with a 6. You have the microphone here, by the way.
Which one's that?
The one
This one?
inside, yeah. 633.
Which one?
Right here,
Okay,
917.
633 6208.
Perfect. And then we'll try this one over here. What one is that?
232 4434.
Perfect. That establishes two things. Number one, all the pages and all the numbers are different in that phone book. Number two, those are good prescriptions for you.
Okay.
Perfect. So I'm going to ask you to page through to any page you'd like. And when you're ready, just take the paperclip and put it around that page. As you're doing that, I have with me a bunch of numbers, digits, prints on cards, yellow cards. I have some numbers are repeating, 0, 1, 2, all the way through 9. And these numbers are going to answer a question that we haven't even asked yet using this team of people. So I could please have you just staying exactly where you are. Everyone turn 180 degrees so you're facing the back wall. Nice. Awesome. I'm going to give you shuffle these up a little bit. I'm going to give you each a number. When I give you the number, please do not exchange it with anybody else. Just hold it right in front of you like that, hands at the side, right in front of your chest. And also, do not rotate the number, because if you rotate it, a 6 could become a 9, or an 8 could become an infinity sign. And if you brought your own numbers, do not exchange with the ones I've given you. Perfect. So, Danny, have you picked your own page?
Yep.
Perfect. Take your right finger, place on any one of the columns at the top. Perfect. When I say go, I want you to slowly, while looking at me, drag your finger down the page, on the page you picked, on the column you picked in the entire phone book. When I say stop, I want you to stop at exactly that number. Fair? So when I say go, looking at me, go. Stop. You got it?
Yep.
So we'll pick the number closest to you. Which number is that? That's going to be, read it out loud. Ignore the area code.
238 1208.
238 1208. 238 1208. 2, 3, 8, 1, 2, 0, 8. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Head back. Thank you. Thank you very much. 238 1208. Interesting, right? Thank you. Have a good one. Thank you, Danny, very much. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Twilio co-founder and CEO, Jeff Lawson.
Hello! Hello and welcome! Welcome to the very first Signal conference, and welcome to our remote audiences, our sold-out houses in London and Berlin, live streaming. This is a conference about software, software people, and how software is changing the world of communications. You know, just a few months ago, we announced that Twilio had reached the goal of 500,000 developers building the future of software applications on top of Twilio. And now we're excited to announce that number is already nearly 700,000 developers building the future of communications on Twilio, just a few months later. But if you look at the impact of the applications you're building, it's fascinating. See, we started keeping track of the top US carriers and how many phone numbers they provision in a quarter. And in Q1, developers building on Twilio are the #2 carrier in the United States. You are one of the top 4 carriers. How cool is that? And at our last TwilioCon conference, we announced that your applications had interacted with 350 million unique individuals around the world. And today, that number is over 641 million people around the world have interacted with your applications. That's 1 in 5 mobile subscribers in the entire planet. Amazing. And as we look at the transactions that your applications are doing, calls and messages, we first looked at this graph in 2011, and we thought that the number was amazing. And then we looked at it again in 2013, and it kept on growing. It was even more impressive, the reach of your applications. Well, now in 2015, you've continued to astound us by growing your applications to reach more and more people on the planet. Fantastic. But when we think about what is driving this growth, what is it that developers are doing to reach so many people around the world with their communications? Twilio's always been about enabling new kinds of applications, things that never would have existed without developers building them. And actually, in this period of time, since 2011, a new kind of application has arisen, one that's never existed in the world before. And it's driving this need for cloud-scale communications. Here's what I mean. If you look at the old world of communications, right, the gold standard enterprise use case for communications, the call center. And you look at some of the largest call centers in America, and you see that they've got 5,000 employees per call center, built by the likes of American Express and Fidelity and Blue Cross. Right? And you think about the scale of these, the gold standard of scale in the old world of enterprise communications. If you take American Express, for example, they have 8,000 agents in total in the United States, doing 100 million customer interactions annually. But a new kind of application has arisen with the on-demand economy. Companies like Uber and Lyft and Postmates and TaskRabbit and Handy and HomeJoy and Porch are now connecting consumers directly with service providers and are completely changing the scale of these applications. It's not 8,000 agents in this new world, it's 200,000 agents communicating with customers on Twilio. And it's not 100 million interactions annually, it's nearly 2 billion interactions annually. This is what we mean by cloud-scale communications, for this fundamentally new kinds of business models that are being built today by software developers and entrepreneurs around the world. And as always, it's just the beginning. You astound us with what you build, the applications, the new modes of communications every year. And we can't wait to see what you're going to build next. To celebrate the accomplishments of the developers in our ecosystem, we love celebrating the doers. And so as we've done in the past, I want to introduce to you today our Twilio Hall of Doers for 2015. Let's meet some people who've done some amazing work in the last year. Our first doer of 2015 is Jared Zonerreich. Meet Jared. Jared has been to, I think, nearly every hackathon that there is. He lists dozens on his webpage. And the applications he built at them, in fact, he's won a lot of awards, including winning the TechCrunch Disrupt Hackathon in 2013. Oh, did I mention he's in high school? Jared's a high school student. And you know what? He went to the Penn Apps Hackathon, and he decided he wanted to bring that to the students of his school. And so he started Hack BCA. And it is now in its second year, the largest high school hackathon in the world. Let's hear it for Jared. Last year, we launched Twilio.org, our initiative to help nonprofits have the best technology for communications, and our commitment to deliver 1 billion messages for good with our partners. And our next doers are a part of Twilio.org initiative. Please meet Nina Chabot and Greta Martella. See, Nina and Greta created translifeline.org, a voice hotline for the transgender community. 41% of transgender people consider suicide at one point in their life. And so they created this hotline to allow people in trouble to call in and get help. And unlike other suicide prevention hotlines, translifeline.org is staffed entirely by people who identify themselves as transgender. And they've scaled from 2 volunteers manning that line to 17 to now 70 trained operators giving help every day. They are literally saving lives every day. Let's hear it for Nina and Greta. And next up, from our partner KDDI in Japan, please meet Katsumi Takahashi. Katsumi Takahashi won the KDDI hackathon this year with his app, the Automatic Call Relay Service. See, in some countries, it's common to have infrastructure for the hearing impaired, such as the TTY services. But in Japan, it's not as common. So at the hackathon, he built it. Using just a web browser, a phone, text-to-speech, and voice recognition, he put these pieces together to build an app for the hearing impaired. And what's amazing about it, because it's all software, it's very cost-effective, it costs very little to run, and it is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, entirely in software. Let's hear it for Katsumi. Our next doer is also a part of Twilio.org. Daniel Probert of CamFed is working in Africa. See, 24 million girls in sub-Saharan Africa can't afford to go to school. And so CamFed powers a network of volunteers to help in the most remote and poorest parts of Africa, helping girls get the educational opportunity that they deserve. And these volunteers are serving many functions. In fact, since 1993, when CamFed was founded, they've helped over 3.5 million girls get an education. Daniel found Twilio at a hackathon and quickly realized he could use it to improve the communications at CamFed. And he built this app to coordinate the volunteer activities, to let them know where to go, and also to collect data on their impact so they could better fundraise to increase CamFed's scale. Let's hear it for Daniel. Our next doer is Ben Godlove. Ben and his co-founders were in Y Combinator, and they started the program with an idea for a blood pressure monitoring application, but at some point along the way, another idea arose. See, they realized if you wanted food delivered to you, there's an app for that. If you want a car brought to you, there's an app for that. If you want your laundry done, there's an app for that. But they said, I don't want all these apps, I just want to send a text message and get anything delivered. And so they created a service called Magic. You can text to get anything via the Magic application. They built it in a few days, they put it on Hacker News, and would you believe in the first day they did over 17,000 messages, helping people get things like a cab, their laundry, get sushi on a boat, making a parking ticket go away, getting a lawyer, even delivering a tiger was one of the requests that they got. So they wrote this thing in a weekend, they launched on Hacker News, and now it's their full-time business. Let's hear it for Ben. And our last doer for 2015 is Stefan Alexic. He was at the MHacks hackathon at the University of Michigan. Go Blue. At this hackathon, he built the Cosmos web browser. It's an application for Android phones. But what separates it from every other web browser that's ever existed is it's designed for places in the world where they don't have ubiquitous wireless internet. In fact, if all you have is 2G service, you can use the Cosmos browser, and the underlying data transport is SMS. It sends a request via SMS from your phone in the background to a proxy that he wrote that goes and fetches the URL, strips out all the images in CSS, and delivers the text of that web page back over a series of SMS messages, and then renders it on the screen as a web page. Now, I don't know about you, but I think this exemplifies the doer mentality, building something like the Cosmos web browser. for the audacity to build such a hack. Please give it up for Stefan. Awesome. It's so awesome to see all these hacks. You know, one of the members of our Hall of Doers just a few years ago in 2012 was a young entrepreneur named Daniel Palacio. He founded a company called Authy. He was using Twilio to provide developers a great API for two-factor authentication and allowing developers to secure their applications with a simple API. And their solution was so elegant and so useful to developers. And as it turns out, identity is critical to building apps that communicate. And so earlier this year, Authy joined the Twilio family. Please welcome up the founder of Authy, Daniel Palacio, to tell us a bit more about what Authy's been up to.
Thank you, Jeff. It's great to be here. As you already know, Authy and Twilio joined forces back in February, and we're very excited to be part of the Twilio family. Back in 2011, the only application that used two-factor authentication was Google Mail. So I decided to start Authy with one goal: to bring two-factor authentication to consumers everywhere. And to do this, we started with the developer. We created a very simple API to allow developers to add two-factor authentication into their website. But because we wanted developers to bring this functionality to consumers and their customers, we knew we had to make something very, very simple and accessible to everyone. Because even the best technology, the security technology, is useless unless your customers and users can access it and want to use it. And so we created two simple authentication methods. The first one code, which sends you a text message or a phone call with a one-time password, and it's available to everyone on any regular phone. Our second one, Soft Token, which is a dedicated app that gives you a one-time password on demand on your smartphone or any device, even your Apple Watch. But we don't want to protect just logins. We want to help developers protect every transaction or event inside their apps. And to do just that, we knew we needed a product that was much more flexible and allowed them to have much more control. But before that, let's go back to 2015. Today, along with Twilio, we protect more than 11,000 apps with two-factor authentication. This is amazing. In just 3 years, we went from one app to 11,000 apps that allow you to protect yourself with two-factor authentication. And in the past year, we've been working on a new product that allowed developers to have the right building blocks to build a new way of authentication that meet the demands of their customers. And it was much more flexible. And with that, I want to introduce you today to our newest product, Authy One Touch. With One Touch, there are no more codes to remember or to type. Login is as simple as just one touch. But instead of me telling you all this, let me show it to you. So we're going to go to our favorite bank, the old bank, and I'm just going to simply log in. But before I can log in, I'm going to get a one-touch request on my iPhone that I can just swipe and either deny or approve. Very simple. Sorry, I meant to click approve. Let's try that one more time. Wait, this is... Okay. So I just click approve, and I'm logged in. One Touch is going to be available as a beta today. Just go to authy.com/onetouch, and we can't wait to see what you build with it. Thank you so much.
All right. That was awesome. So, a lot is going on in the world of software. Things are moving very quickly. And I think it's very interesting that Hollywood recently made a movie that tells one of the most important stories going on in the world of software today. And was it The Social Network? No, it's not The Social Network. Maybe it's the Imitation Game? No, not the Imitation Game. No, the movie I'm talking about is actually the Lego Movie. How many of you saw the Lego Movie? Wasn't it awesome? I loved this movie because it's the perfect allegory for what's going on in the world of software. See, as movies often begin, this movie starts with the normal, usual world that our characters wake up in, and we meet Emmett, the hero of the movie, a citizen of this Lego world. And as a good citizen of the world, he follows all the rules dictated by the government. In fact, there's a list of rules for what you should do to be a happy, productive citizen, including breathe, exercise, brush your teeth, wear clothes, and my personal favorite, rule number 21, drink overpriced coffee. Right, and so if all the citizens of the Lego world just follow the rules and do everything as they're told and build everything by the instructions, the world just works. Every car is in lockstep, every person is lockstep, and everybody is happy. And everything is just as it should be. And this is because it is how the president of the world wants it to be. Yes, Lord Business. He's kind of a control freak. And he wants everything to go exactly according to plan. In fact, he believes that all the Legos should only be put together according to the instructions, right? And he decrees that all the unusual Legos, all the weird stuff should be blown up. And so the citizens of the world are doing just that. They're blowing up all the unusual creations and leaving only the predefined Legos you're allowed to build in their place. Well, this didn't sit well with some members of the Society of the Lego World. See, there's a group of people called the Master Builders. And the Master Builders believe that you should be able to put the Legos together in any way you want. And you should be able to create amazing new things like this awesome motorcycle or the double-decker couch so you can watch TV with more friends. Or this submarine that's part rainbow, part Batmobile, and just entirely awesome. And so the Master Builders kind of go to war with Lord Business and his goons to get the right to fix society, to have the right to be able to build whatever they want. And in the end, I won't do too many spoilers here, but in the end, they convince Lord Business that indeed this is how the world should work. And you should be able to build, and you should be able to create. And what an amazing allegory for the world of software. But there's an interesting question that you have to ask when you think about this. It may not seem obvious, but why is Lord Business the bad guy in this story? I mean, he created a society that seems to work. Everybody was happy, everyone was productive. But to us builders, we all know why Lord Business was the bad guy. See, everybody, as a child, played with Legos. And while we had other toys that were just pre-built, you had a Millennium Falcon you could fly around with, and but after a while it just got old, and you'd put it down and it would sit in the closet. But your toys that were Legos, the minute they got old, you just took them apart, and you made something new. And so Legos never got old. In fact, Legos taught us the joy of creating. The joy of creating something that's never existed before in the world. And Lord Business was taking that away. And that's why it offends us. And when you're a kid, you kind of meet the world the way it is when you're born. And you assume that the world's always been the way you see when you're born. And things have just always been that way. But as you get older, you realize that at some point throughout history, Everything we see around us had to be created by somebody. Everything. Think about the lowly chair you're sitting in. It's a chair. You're like, chairs, they just are, right? Do you know that chairs were uncommon until the 16th century? I read that on Wikipedia. Right, but think about this plastic chair. Right, at some point in history, someone had to invent plastic. Someone had to figure out how to injection mold it. Someone had to, invent aluminum. Someone had to figure out how to roll aluminum into tubes. Someone had to figure out how to manufacture screws to hold it together. Somebody at some point had to invent the screw. All of these things happened at some point in history, and we can't take any of it for granted. Whether it's the lowly chair or some of the biggest engineering feats on the planet, everything was composed together by the available components in the world to build something new. Everything was composed at some point in history by somebody. Building is just fundamental to the human spirit. That's why Lord Business was the bad guy. And what's amazing about where we are in 2015 is that software is the most scalable form of composition ever known to humanity. You can build an app and publish it out on the internet for hundreds of millions or billions of people. That's never existed before. But you know what? Somewhere along the way, many companies were told that they couldn't build software. You talk to companies, and say, oh, we don't make software, we just buy it. Right? This makes me sad. But I can kind of understand why that's been ingrained into many companies. In order to understand why, let's get in our time machine and go back to the year 1990. Right? Imagine 1990. The Simpsons is airing for the first time. We're all wearing our hammer pants, and you wrote your software in C using waterfall. And project after project didn't work, was delivered late, was over budget, had bugs. So yeah, people got the message, this software thing is really hard. And along came vendors who said, no. You don't build software, that's not what you do. That's what we do. You just buy that software from us. Right? And they'd have these smart phrases, that made you seem like a smart business person for buying into them, right? Like, why would you go reinvent the wheel? Right? It's already been created. You're kind of an idiot if you reinvent the wheel or outsource what isn't core. Right? These things sound smart, and companies did, and they started buying their software from Lord Ellison. And you started out by buying databases, and you added financials and marketing packages, and all these other suites came together, and suddenly product suites became all you need. And they would tell you, oh yeah, these things fit together really nicely like puzzle pieces, and they just plug into each other. But you know what's interesting? Puzzle pieces kind of look, at the surface, they kind of look like Legos, right? The problem is, puzzle pieces can only be put together in one way. If you take apart that puzzle, there's only one way it goes back together. That's not building. The only person who wins in this world is Lord Ellison. Excuse me, mistake, Lord Business. But an interesting thing has happened in the last 20, 25 years. Software has moved from the back office to the business model. It's no longer about buying, ERP and having spreadsheets. 20 years ago, if you were a software company, it meant you sold packaged software, like in a box on CD-ROMs. Today, software companies sell everything. They make a taxi arrive when you want one. They get you an apartment when you're traveling. They get your laundry done for you. Software companies are delivering everything, not boxes with CD-ROMs. And so companies that believe they can't build and believe they aren't software companies, well, I have a message. Companies have mortgaged their future by believing they cannot build. It's that easy. And so while we started in the early days of computers at this really low level with transistors and then CPUs on top of that and then assembly and then C, right? And you had hammer pants and Lord Business telling you that it's really hard. Well, guess what? We've built higher and higher abstractions and we've moved on from that world, right? We have fourth generation languages, we have Ruby, we put Ruby on Rails, and now composable APIs are the modern form of infrastructure upon which developers can build. And so just like Legos taught us that every kid can be a builder, well, the modern composable APIs, the modern software toolkit, is so easy to use, just like Legos. And in fact, if Legos allowed every kid to build, composable APIs are allowing every company to build. And so, anybody who believes, anybody who tries to tell you that you can't build is opposing 200,000 years of humanity. And we must oppose them. Because whatever your business, master builders will come along and challenge your business model with the power of software. And so it's all of our jobs to defeat Lord Business, because history belongs to the builders. Absolutely. Now, to introduce a company that knows a whole lot about software and composing APIs, Amazon.com is a leader in this space. And to talk more about how Amazon and AWS is enabling companies to use composable APIs to become builders, please welcome Amazon.com CTO, Dr. Werner Vogels.
Thanks, Jeff. Good morning. I always thought that, we've talked a lot about cloud, and if you talk about the Amazon cloud, AWS, it's always so much more than just the services that Amazon delivers. Yeah, the ecosystem around it is equally important. And so Twilio is a crucial part of that ecosystem to deliver communication services as part of our platform. Yeah, it's so much more than just AWS. So what I want to talk to you today about is a bit about sort of taking Jeff's theme of composable things, walking you a bit through the history of Amazon, the retailer, and then dive into hopefully some nuggets that you can take away about how people are building modern systems on top of AWS, sort of the lessons learned that we've done from that. The beautiful pictures that you see over there are from my hometown, Amsterdam. All of them have clouds in them. Yeah? And it's also just to show you that if you live in Seattle, there are other places that have much worse rain. So if you look at the sort of the Amazon of the history of Amazon, just like all other businesses, when we started, it was much more important to grow your product and to grow really fast. And as such, architectural coherence was not necessarily on the forefront of people's minds. Then most importantly was to really get big fast. That hurt you at one moment. After a number of years, the software had become one big monolith. And the only way to actually survive that, to actually be able to scale, to remain reliable, was to break up that monolith. And so very early on, and this is end of the 90s, early 2000, we moved to a service-oriented architecture. That meant taking away pieces of business logic from the monolith, bringing it together with the data that it operated on, putting an API on top of it, and call it a service. It allowed us to have sort of an evolutionary path to breaking up the monolith. And it was sort of way before service orientation was a buzzword. And it worked really well for us. Unfortunately, after a while, because Amazon kept growing and kept scaling, some of these services became as big as that the monolith was. And so we had to go through another phase of decomposition. And most of those decomposition was around sort of the largest data sets that we had. Customers, items, that's the catalog, and orders. And if you look at sort of the customer master service, that was basically a really big piece of business logic that sat around sort of the customer database. We had to break that up into much smaller pieces. Yeah? An address book service, a login service, and things that were much smaller. And also, many of these services had very different characteristics with respect to scaling, with respect to reliability. And so we went to what's now known in the outside world as a microservices architecture. Very small building blocks that each of them have different sort of scaling, reliability, and access requirements. And so microservices these days are, of course, really popular, at least as a buzzword. But we found out that if you have 800 of these services, which is around where we are at this moment, if you hit the gateway page of Amazon.com, it will go out to somewhere between 200 and 300 services to create that unique page for you. What we found, however, is that there is a next phase that comes after that. Yeah, there is sort of a level of aggregation that sort of composes quite a few of these microservices together to get a particularly unique view on the data or the services that they operate on. For example, things around products. You know, every product, if you have, how many products do we show on a homepage? Maybe 60. And for each of them, you have to get a description, you have to get an image, you have to get a price, things like that. So all of those are actually driven from different services, and it's being aggregated and served as a particular unit and building block. So aggregations are sort of the next level you get after microservices. Now, to do this, we had to build infrastructure to make it really easy for all of our developers to build these services really quickly. So these are sort of this is infrastructure version number 1. Yeah? You have to be able to measure, you have to be able to deploy, naming, finding your services, how to route your messages to them, and how to have contracts between all these different services to make sure that none of them can overload some of the others and make them brown out. So version 2 of this infrastructure then becomes the one which you start thinking about containers. Not containers as we know them today, not the Dockers and others of this world, but more language-based containers. The next thing we had to tackle was databases. It turned out that most of Amazon were running on relational databases. But it turned out that when we did a deep dive on how we were really using those databases, about 70% of it was just key value. You could see that because every query would just have just one primary key and would only give one single row back. 70% of our database access was like that. The same goes for sort of single table view, that was about 20%, and then 10% was only relational. So that's why we started to build our own databases, because we wanted to have full control over how our data was stored over multiple data centers, and we wanted full control over the performance and the reliability there. So all of you, many of you will know that now as Dynamo, the first key value store that was out there that had been mimicked by many others. But all of this work was actually really hard because we wanted to distribute it over multiple data centers. So we moved at one moment, started to move everything from what was hardware into software interfaces. Yeah, because managing hardware is a nightmare, and it has no valuable contribution to your business. This is a great paper by Nick Carr in Harvard Business Review that says IT doesn't matter. And he didn't mean that IT didn't matter, he just meant that it has no competitive differentiation. Yeah? And so you have to focus on your products, not on the infrastructure. So that became AWS, the Amazon Web Services, that you now all use on the outside world. So the big shift there is that everything that used to be hardware and a fixed resource and a hard-to-manage resource now is all software. Everything is programmable. Yeah? A data center, you no longer have to do legal data center negotiations in Tokyo. It's just one push of a button that you can use in the console in AWS to launch your service there. And so now that everything is software, suddenly we can build things that we could never do before. Or we could do it, but it was way too hard. Yeah, 20 years ago, mid-90s, I was working on lots of reliability algorithms and things like that. We had already figured out how to do replication worldwide. We just never did it. It was way too hard. But now that everything is programmable and everything is software, you can suddenly start building the distributed systems that you always wanted to build. Yeah, and these are sort of the 5 pillars in my eyes. It has to be secure, you have to have predictable performance, it has to be fault tolerant, scalable, and you have to have control over cost. These things are things you want to control. They need to be in your hands, because that's how your application will actually serve to your customers. And I think if you look at these modern architectures, yeah, by now we have well over 1 million businesses in the past month running on AWS with a wide variety of applications. Some of them are all in, some of them do data analytics, some of them are building radically new applications that nobody's ever seen before. If we look at that, then there are sort of 4 different areas that are servicing as being sort of really important for software developers. Yeah? First of all, you have to be able, let me make this one. Yeah? If you treat AWS as your data center, as the old-style data center, you're losing out. Yeah? You have to use new concepts to actually build these new applications. And if you think about controllable, first and foremost, if you want to control things, just like we did when we went to a microservices architecture, you have to decompose them. You have to decompose them in those blocks where each of them have unique scaling and reliability characteristics. You have to be able to automate them. You have to put APIs on them. If you have to log into your VM through SSH to control your application, you're doing it wrong. Yeah? Also, the scaling should be automated in a way that you can have business controls determine how your application is going to scale. It's the business that decides whether at the 99.9 percentile you have a 1.7 second latency to your customers, or the business decides to actually use more resources to pull that in to 1.2 seconds. It needs to be a business decision, not an engineering decision. And you can actually architect for cost control in this way. And cost control means that the cost of your infrastructure or the cost of your application should grow over the same dimension where you think that you're going to make money. Yeah? That might be, for example, in retail, the number of orders. You have to make sure that your costs are exactly in line with where your income is going to come from. Secondly, the areas of adaptability. In the past, many IT projects completely failed because you had to make all these assumptions beforehand what your resources were going to be. In this new world where everything is programmable and everything is flexible, you no longer have to make assumptions. Remember, making assumptions is the mother of all mess-ups. Yeah? And so if you can actually avoid that, no longer have to make assumptions about the resources that you need, you can actually have a much higher likelihood that you're going to be successful. So you get late binding of your resources. Only when you've built your system, you're going to figure out what kind of instance type or what kind of machine you actually need for this to run it. And if you make a mistake, it's not such a big deal. Yeah? You just try again, you pick another instance type. And it's also very important to think about that your software needs to evolve over time. What you're going to run now is not the software that is actually going to run when you have an order of magnitude scale after this. And in that also, continuous deployment and testing is really important. These are numbers of a typical day at Amazon.com, where with well over 1,000 deployments an hour, with a typical 10 to 30,000 nodes deployment. And it is continuous. Also, you have to figure out, do I want to spend a lot of time in managing and operating my databases, or do I take much simpler interfaces out of the world, such as DynamoDB, that allows you just to set a few parameters, and it will work by itself. You have to instrument everything, because if you do not know what's going on in your systems, you have to have an infrastructure that allows you to really collect all the data, not only just say low-level metrics, but also the business-level data that you can actually operate your service continuously and allow it to drive your scale. Put everything in logs, including performance information, because you will be able to actually retroactively look at what happened in your system. And most importantly there is that you have to inspect the whole distribution of performance, not just the average. An average or a medium latency, for example, just means that 50% of your customers are getting a worse performance. You have to know how much worse. You have to have actually built engineering controls that control that last aspect of the distribution. That's really important, because there are the control points. If you build applications these days where your customers are going to rely on, protecting them is the most important thing. On one hand, from a security point of view, but also from a reliability point of view. Don't think if there's one failure that nothing else is going to happen. You have to always think that if one failure is going to happen, it probably will have a cascading effect on your application because other code paths will be triggered that have never been triggered before. And you have to think about new security models. Yeah? It's no longer that you can build a moat around your castle. If that would be the case, if that would be the right security model, we would have still moats around our cities. But that's not the case. Yeah? You have to protect individual applications with new security tools that allow you to completely protect each application by itself. And you have to encrypt everything, believe me. 5 years ago, we were still having a discussion whether HTTPS was too expensive. Now, every consumer service runs on HTTPS. The same goes for encryption. We've always felt that it was not usable enough. But these days, the tools are there. You should encrypt everything, just to protect your business as well as your customers. Yeah, so if you look at these are sort of the different points that I believe modern applications are thinking about. You have to be able to control them. You have to be able to, very late in the process, just make decisions about how you're going to use your resources. You have to use all the data that you can get. And believe me, you have to be resilient. We give you multiple availability zones. If you just run in one availability zone, you're putting your business at risk. These tools are there. Use them. And we're doing our best to actually, in each of these areas, give you new and modern tools to allow you to move much faster. So if you look at the things that we delivered in the, let's say, the past 6 months, yeah, for controllable, we've given you the EC2 container service, which allows you to actually schedule containers, Dockers in this case, but that might be just the first step, to allow them to schedule them over multiple availability zones to automatically increase the reliability of your service. We've given you new instance types. C4, the very fast processor. G2 is a new generation of the G2s, the GPU processors. Work really well. AWS Lambda is the coolest stuff we have ever done. Really, this is so hot, you would not believe it. You no longer have to run servers. You just write some code, you dump it somewhere, and in response to events that are happening, your code will just be automatically run in high level of parallelism. Now we just run with JavaScript, and in a few weeks, you will be able to write your Lambda functions in Java. We run the machine learning service that allows you to actually build, no longer to have to be a machine learning expert, but actually be able to just build a machine learning tool to actually make predictions as part of your applications. Very cool as well. And in the resilient one, we've recently launched cross-region replication for S3, as well as a key management service. Yeah? You no longer have an excuse to not encrypt your data because managing keys is too hard. We've built this stuff for you, so you should go out and build. There's no excuse anymore not to build exactly the software that you want and to protect your customers in the process. And remember, yeah, when you do development, when you go home, you can turn off the lights of your VMs. Good night.
I love that. There's no excuse not to build the software you need for your customers. That is fantastic. Some people think that this composable approach, right, you can put these building blocks together and build anything. Some people might think that this is limited to, hipster developers working at startups in Soma, but that's it. But in fact, it's not just the hipster startups. It's some of the biggest corporations in the world are using this composable approach to build new applications. And one of those companies is Nordstrom. They're a Fortune 500 company, and they're using the power of software to transform their customer experience. And so here to walk us through how they're using the power of software, please welcome up Senior Director of Mobile and Personalization Delivery, JB Brown. JB, come on up. JB, welcome. So I want to start off by asking you, how does composability affect how you build at Nordstrom?
Yeah, we recognize customers' definition of service is changing. So with their increased expectations, we also have increased opportunities to go and meet their needs. And so software as composable APIs really allows us to do that in a much more rapid way, and we can create many permutations of a solution in order to provide customers the service that they want and that's custom to them, one customer at a time.
So really personalized.
Very personalized and also rapid, and we can do a bunch of experiments and try options and see what sticks.
So you listen to customers, you take their feedback, and you build iteratively based on that feedback. Can you share us a bit about some of the stuff you've built based on that customer feedback?
Yeah, so our texting offering, so we have a product called Next that allows a very private and secure communication one-to-one between a salesperson and a customer. This is based on feedback that we heard from customers and from salespeople that they wanted to be able to connect and shop the store even when both of them weren't in the store. And so you needed a quick way to be able to allow them to communicate, talk about merchandise, and that's when we turned to Twilio and worked together during your long code MMS build and our build of Next, and tried to provide this private, secure, one-to-one customer opt-in communication.
So it's a customer communicating directly with their salesperson.
Yeah, through their just natural text client, and the salesperson has an app that allows them to text with their Twilio number, but only when the customer opts in, and it's always in the customer's control.
And so you allow that, how does this interaction start? How does a customer know that they can text their salesperson?
Usually they're in the store, and they're getting help, and right when they leave or right shortly before, they'll ask for the next number, or they'll ask for help when they're not in the store. The salesperson will say, I can help you even when you're not here. Here's my number. Just text me, and I can find the things that you're looking for, remind you of events like special guest appearances and stuff like that in the store. So we kind of are hoping to serve customers on their terms even when they're not at the store.
And so the salesperson essentially hands you a business card saying, hey, I can help you at any time. Here's my number.
It's as simple as that.
Right, and that's a Twilio number powered by the Next application.
That's right.
Wow, that's really cool. So I understand you've got some news to share this morning about what's next for this application.
Yeah, so since we were able to work with you during the long code MMS beta, we've had some time to listen to our customers after putting Next out. And today, I have the luxury of announcing our phase 2 right here at Signal. And we are launching Textile. So it is not only the ability to privately and securely shop Nordstrom, it is the ability to buy through the convenience of text message. So salesperson will help you through text message when you request and can provide you products and information. And if you find that you like them and you'd like that item to show up at your house, all you have to do is type the word buy and a short code, and it will arrive at your door shortly after with free shipping and free returns.
Wow. That's it. So you say, the salesperson says, hey, don't you like this new item? I thought it fits your style. And you say buy, and the salesperson is just going in and typing it in and putting it in a box for you?
It's actually very systematic and automatic. Salesperson doesn't actually have your information. It's all private and secure. It uses your Nordstrom.com profile and places the order as if it was a Nordstrom.com order, which then goes through all of the various routing and shipping rules that we use just for our website and our apps.
Wow. Buying with a text message. Congratulations, JB.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Let's hear it for Nordstrom and JB. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that's a really cool innovation. That launched right here today. I think that's awesome. I gotta go make some purchases. Excuse me. So we learned that using composable APIs and this software model is not just for startups. It's not just for Fortune 500 companies either. The largest employer in the world, the US government, is now building modern software with composable APIs. So to tell us a bit more about how the US government is building modern software, please welcome up the special White House advisor on technology to President Obama and the former CTO of the United States of America, Todd Park.
Hello!
It's a fantastic pleasure to be here with you all today. I'm Todd Park, White House tech advisor based in Silicon Valley. But just as background, I spent most of my life as a private sector tech entrepreneur. I co-founded a cloud-based healthcare company called Athena Health, then another one called Castlight Health. Then I got drafted by the American government, to my great surprise. And here's the thing. As incredible as my experience was at Athena Health, as incredible as my experience was at Castlight Health, the most meaningful and the most amazing experience I've ever had has been serving my country in the US federal government. I'm here to talk with you today about a particular initiative that we're engaged in called the United States Digital Service. How many folks have heard about the US Digital Service? Okay, so let me actually take it from the top. The US Digital Service is a new elite unit of the country's best technologists that we are building in the heart of the US government. Think DARPA meets the Peace Corps meets SEAL Team 6. People with brains the size of Jupiter, hearts even bigger, who are phenomenally devoted to country and doing good for their fellow human. The mission of the US Digital Service is to basically drive the US government to a place where it can deliver world-class digital services to the American public at radically lower cost. The core approach is the following. Essentially, we're taking teams of the country's best developers, product managers, UX designers, and data scientists, and injecting them in small teams into more and more of the government's most important projects. Projects that aim to modernize how immigrants immigrate, or modernize Social Security, or improve radically how we deliver services and healthcare to our veterans, and much, much, much more. Basically, we're sending in these small teams of incredible technologists. We're teaming them up with the best people on the ground, already in government, and giving them massive air cover to fundamentally revamp how these projects execute, to bring them in line with the kinds of Silicon Valley best practices you've been hearing out today, which are commonplace here in the Valley, but absolutely not commonplace at all inside the government. And in doing so, we hope not just to end homelessness among veterans, not just help immigrants more easily come to this country and live the American dream, not just secure the future of our seniors, and much, much more. But we also hope to, in the process of doing so, fundamentally reset the baseline for how our government executes and render it a much more effective, much more efficient institution on behalf of the American people. It's an approach that's actually beginning to work, powered by a growing array of tech avengers that are assembling from across America, doing 1 to 2 year tours of duty in this new United States Digital Service, serving their country in an incredibly high-impact way. Which actually brings me to the real reason I'm here on stage, which is to introduce a surprise guest speaker. In a sneak preview of something that's going to be happening officially in about a week, this person is the newest Avenger who will be joining the US Digital Service. He is someone who is beloved in the Twilio community, and whom the United States of America just needs to borrow for a little while. We promise to return him, but we actually need him for a national mission. He is someone, in fact, whom we hope inspires many of you to join him in doing a tour of duty serving our country. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the latest incredible human being who will be joining the US Digital Service, an American hero, a true hero of mine, Twilio co-founder, Evan Cook.
Thank you. Thank you, Todd. Hi, everybody. It is such a pleasure to be here with you today and to have the opportunity to share with you an effort I really, truly hope will improve your lives for the better, whether you live here in the United States or come here to visit. Let's start with this slide. It's a picture of the line in front of the passport agency here in San Francisco. It's a line I used to walk in front of every morning on my way to work for years. Now, it's incredible, but one of the very last places we must stand in line is for government services. We've come to expect that the way in which we interact with our government is simply by standing in line. Now, this is crazy because we know that there must be a better way. However, the notion of thinking about our government as fixable has been lost to many of us, especially here in the United States. We kind of feel powerless. The problem is too big, it's too difficult, and we don't know where or how we can help. So the problem is indeed big. The US federal government employs more than 4.2 million full-time workers. This is as big as it gets. By comparison, Apple, the company with the largest market capitalization in the world, employed only about 100,000 people in 2014. So some would say to us, what's the point? Give up. However, as Jeff said, we are builders, we are engineers, and we love hard problems. So I think the opposite is true. I think that government will be transformed for the better by software. So the question in front of us is when. Now, the longer we wait, the longer the most needy and underserved populations don't get the services that we've already promised to deliver to them. Now, in the past, Washington didn't know that there was a better way. They didn't know that we, practitioners of new tools and new methodologies, even existed. But I'm so happy that the environment has changed. Lessons from you, the technology community, have already changed the US government. This is the playbook of the United States Digital Service. It's available publicly online. You can go check it out today. And it lists the key plays that were used to turn around a giant federal IT project, healthcare.gov. Now, some of these lessons you may already know. You may have, in fact, been practicing them for years. However, their application to government was transformative. It has created a tipping point. Let me show you. So this right here is the White House. And right across the street, in the building in which Theodore Roosevelt stayed in 1906, is the headquarters of the United States Digital Service. President Obama created the United States Digital Service and placed it at the highest levels of government to support and facilitate digital transformation. I had the privilege of meeting President Obama, and he told me directly that the US government is ready and waiting for Silicon Valley and the technical community to step in. There has simply been no time in history when technologists have had so much leverage and no place with so much potential for positive impact than in government. These are the men and women of the United States Digital Service, and I'm so proud and happy to be joining them for a tour of duty. With, of course, my Twilio chucks on. So, thank you. If you've been working in technology for years and thinking about a way to give back, Uncle Sam may need you. And I am so happy to say that today, in San Francisco, at this very conference, we have team members from the United States Digital Service with us. So after this keynote at 11:30, stop by, say hi, learn more about the USDS effort. Thank you so much.
I'm really excited for this journey. Awesome. Let's hear it for Evan, American hero. I'm really excited for Evan. That's going to be an amazing, amazing journey. So we've talked a lot this morning about building, right? Building applications. One of the things that we found by working with hundreds of thousands of developers on so many apps is one of the things we've learned is that building is just the first step. Because once you build something, you deploy it to prod, and then you've got a new set of problems to deal with, right? And so here to talk about how Twilio can help you not just build, but scale and operate your communication apps at global scale, please welcome up from Twilio's product team, Tim Milliron and Patrick Malatak.
Let's inherit the earth, 'cause no one else is taking it. Come on, do your worst.
Thank you, Jeff.
Moments past, in bedrooms across England.
So while Pat is setting up a demo to show you some new applications or some new primitives that you can use to scale your applications, I'm going to talk about the importance of operating those applications. And I'm going to start with an analogy, the space shuttle. The space shuttle is an amazing machine. It's probably the most complex machine that humanity has ever built. It has over 1 million moving parts. It's obviously very powerful, and it's incredibly flexible. But this machine would actually be useless without a sophisticated infrastructure to operate it, and that's mission control. Mission control gives NASA complete visibility into the shuttle, and that visibility makes it possible to operate it and to make data-driven decisions like Werner was talking about, because you can't operate what you can't see. And in that same way, visibility is critical when you're operating the powerful, flexible applications you're all building. Any application built on Twilio has two parts, your code and the Twilio platform. Now, of course, you've always had visibility into the configuration and the state of your application running on your infrastructure. And Twilio has always given you tools to debug the interaction between the two. But a lot of your application state is actually within Twilio. And you haven't had that same transparency into the events that affect your resources in the Twilio platform until now. That's why we built Monitor and launched it a few weeks ago. Monitor gives you unprecedented visibility into your cloud communications infrastructure with Twilio. In addition to the warnings and alerts that you've become very familiar with, Monitor's event log now tracks changes to virtually every resource within the entire Twilio platform, from phone numbers to account settings. As you can see in this screenshot, we track pretty much everything. Actions that you took within the Twilio console, state changes caused by your API from your application through the API, and then finally, even changes that may have been made by a Twilio support staff member when you reach out for help. This level of transparency is obviously really powerful for troubleshooting and for forensics and for debugging, but this fully managed changelog can also help you with auditing and compliance. And of course, because this is Twilio, all of this is exposed through a flexible, searchable API for integration into your application infrastructure, no matter what that infrastructure is. And so today, we're also excited to announce a new integration with our partner Microsoft that extends your ability to operate with Twilio. Microsoft's new Power BI platform allows you to see these brilliant and beautiful dashboards to gain insights into your application operating at scale. We think Monitor and integrations with Power BI and others like Splunk, Domo, and New Relic will change the way that you operate the composable building blocks your application depends on. So to borrow a phrase from Jeff, we can't wait to see how you operate. Now I'm going to hand it off to Pat, and Pat's going to talk about a few new products to help you scale your applications.
Great. So thanks, Tim. So that's how you operate your Twilio applications. The next thing I want to talk to you about is scale. So Jeff showed you a bunch of charts and graphs earlier about how Twilio has been scaling over the years. But what I want to talk about with you today is not just about how Twilio scales, but how Twilio enables your business or service to scale. So now I think we've all seen this chart before. Hockey stick growth, every entrepreneur's dream. But what they don't tell you about this chart is often what comes along with it is the need to refactor, rescale, and fundamentally re-architect your applications. And at Twilio, we think there needs to be a better way. With composable communication building blocks, you should be able to code once and then scale forever. Now, sending the first message with Twilio's APIs is really, really easy. But as your messaging application gets to scale, whether that's scaling in volume or scaling geographically around the world, applications run into various different edge cases. They run into things like rate limitations, geographic restrictions, and even the need for specialized logic to deal with unsupported carriers. And we continue to see our developers reinventing the wheel and building this again and again. So today, we're announcing a new intelligence layer to our messaging product line, something that we're calling Copilot. Copilot enables you to build a messaging application once and configure it for the changing needs without ever touching your application code. The first feature of Copilot is something we call Scaler. Scalar enables you to take a dedicated pool of numbers in your account and distribute traffic across them. It lets you, the developer, focus on who you want to message and what you want to say, rather than managing a pool of numbers. The second feature of Copilot is something called Sticky Sender. Sticky Sender is really neat. It enables that any time you contact someone, you do so from the same phone number. No need to track it on your own application. This creates a really consistent end-user experience. And finally, the third feature of Copilot is something we're calling shortcode reroute. For those of you that use shortcodes, you know that sometimes they don't work with some of the smaller regional carriers, and reroute ensures reliable delivery of messages anywhere you go. So let's go see how it works. And just a disclaimer here, folks, I'm not a trained magician, so hopefully everything works great. So here I have a Node.js application that we've built. This was a Node.js application we built back in 2013 when we had you all here for the last TwilioCon. I'm going to go ahead and make a few changes to this application to take advantage of the new Copilot features. So one of the first things you'll see is this application is basically going to iterate over every phone number that you guys gave us here when you signed up, and it's going to go ahead and send you out a welcome note. You'll see when we take a look at the body here, we'll go ahead and change this to be welcome to Signal. And you'll see previously it was sending from a phone number. Now that we have the new features and capabilities of Copilot, we're actually going to want to go ahead and send from an application SID. So I'll jump over to the account portal where I have my Copilot app. I'm going to go ahead and copy that application SID. Let's go ahead and paste it into the from address. And then the numbers here are just the numbers that you all handed us. So let's go ahead and execute this script and do one more thing. So let's go fire that away. So I have here a web app that's running that's basically taking all the status callbacks as these messages are getting delivered. And one thing you'll notice is that the messages are going out to the various different attendees here, but they're all from a single phone number. So let's jump over into the account portal and use the features of Copilot to send from more than one number. So let's go in here. We can add an existing number. So let's go add this number to our number pool. Give it a second. And we should see numbers starting to come, messages starting to go out from that newly added number. So there they go. And you'll see actually the rate of this application is increasing. And one of the things that's really, really neat here is Twilio is modifying your application behavior even after you've already sent API requests to us. Now, this is moving along reasonably fast, but there's a whole lot of us here. So we're probably going to need something to make it go a little bit faster. So I'm going to jump back into the account portal. I'm going to go and add a shortcode. Select that shortcode. And the shortcode should dramatically increase the rate that we're able to send through that application. Just give it a few seconds to configure, and things should start flying. So there we go. You get the idea. Great. So that's Copilot. Now, we've added this whole new intelligence layer to our messaging applications, and we were thinking, what should we charge for it? And one of the things we thought about was that we really wanted to make sure this was available to everyone. So we came up with a great price tag for this product. It's going to be free. Copilot is available today in beta. You can apply for it and use it for your next application. So dealing with volume is really only one type of scale. The next I want to talk to you about is global scale. Throughout our history, Twilio has done a lot of work to ensure your applications have a local feel anywhere in the world. Over the years, we've added support for almost every written language in the world. And in addition to great language support, we've continued to roll out more SMS-enabled mobile phone numbers all over the planet. Today, those two things combined, local language support and local number support, give your applications a local feel in 18 different countries. And today, we're announcing another 6 countries to that list. It's pretty exciting. So, you had those 18 countries before. Now we have the additional 6, and your applications can have a local feel now in 24 different countries. But supporting a global customer base is more than just language support and local product support. It also means making sure that the products you build meet the expectations of the local market. Back in December, we partnered with DriveNow, a joint venture between BMW and Styx. It's a car-sharing service that recently made its way from Germany to the US. In fact, you can see their cars outside the pavilion. And when we partnered with DriveNow, we talked to them about how we wanted the service to work in Germany. And they instructed us that they wanted the message to come not from a local phone number, but from alphanumeric text that said the words DriveNow. For those of us in North America, this isn't something that's supported in our market, but all of your international customers are expecting this. This has been in beta with DriveNow for the past few months. And today, we're announcing general availability of Alpha Sender support for everyone out there. And the most exciting thing about Alpha Sender is where we just a few moments ago had a local feel in 24 different countries. Well, Alpha Sender increases our ability to have that local feel to now 145 different countries around the globe. It's fantastic. So now, these new local numbers and these new Alpha Senders that we continue to add to the platform, one of the things that we continue to see, though, is that developers don't always adopt those numbers as soon as we add them in. We're constantly rolling out new numbers. And many of you, it takes a little while to update your applications. So we sat down and we figured out, how could we make this easier? How could we make it so that when you're building your applications, you're able to take advantage of the new product features as soon as they come out? And one of the things we were hoping was we wish we had an intelligence layer for our messaging application. Well, it's a good thing we just introduced Copilot, which is that intelligence layer. And I'm excited to announce the 4th feature of Copilot, which is something we're calling GeoMatch. GeoMatch enables you to send from the local number that makes the most sense in the market you're operating in. So suppose you want to utilize those new Danish numbers we just added. All you need to do is purchase a Danish number and add it to your messaging application. Copilot will intelligently make sure that all the messages to Denmark use that new number. You don't need to change your application code at all. That's GeoMatch. Pretty exciting. So now it's not just about the intelligence layer that we're adding on top of our messaging platform. It's also about what our partners are doing. And so today, I'm excited to announce a new partnership with Urban Airship. Urban Airship has taken their digital wallet APIs and together with Twilio's SMS and MMS, created an amazing passbook experience. Twilio MMS and Urban Airship will allow you to create, distribute, and manage digital wallets without even installing an application. All we need is a phone number. Really excited about what Urban Airship's been doing. Great. So that's what we've been doing on the messaging side of things. How about on the voice side of things? Well, conferencing is one of the most important primitives of the Twilio voice platform. It's the primitive that you use for any conversation that is enabled from more than 2 participants. A couple of years ago, we started down the path to re-architect our conferencing engine. Our basic conferencing products today supports mixing in 1 geographic region. Although this is great if you happen to be in North America near our mixers, it's not ideal for those with a global customer base. Audio is being sent across the planet, which can introduce high latency for your end users. So today, we are super excited. We've been working on this a ton to announce our next generation in conferencing technology, Global Conference. Global Conference is a complete rewrite of our conferencing engine. It introduces distributed mixing technology that intelligently mixes your calls in 6 different locations around the globe. This ensures the highest audio quality experience for your end users. So we've gone from 1 to 6. Basic Conference today supports 40 different participants. But now that we have this new distributed mixing technology, we've been able to bump this up for Global Conference. Global Conference now supports 250 participants for your conferences. So, how are we pricing it? That's the real question. Well, with Global Conference, it's going to be available today, starting at just 0.2 of a penny per minute. And for those that don't need all the features of Global, you can still use Basic Conference, which is included with every Twilio voice minute. That's Global Conference. The coolest part about Global Conference is all you need to do is log into your account portal and just toggle between those two. It'll completely improve your global audio experience without changing a single line of code. So then we asked our engineers. We got up to 250 participants in the conference. How many participants can we hold? Could we do 500? Could we do 1,000? And because we designed it as a distributed system with distributed mixtures all around the globe, the team came back with something that was truly epic. Epic Conference, unlimited participants. It's got the same global capabilities, and it's by reservation available today. Epic Conference. You can go take a look at it, twilio.com/conference. Basic, global, epic. So that's how we're helping you scale your business. As Jeff mentioned, build, scale, and operate are the three things you all need to focus on. Great.
Thank you, Pat. Epic. All right, so build, scale, and operate. New tools to help you build, scale, and operate your applications, either with your volume scaling or your geographic reach scaling. Now, an organization that cares quite a bit about scale is the American Red Cross. And they use messaging to reach volunteers in the moments of crisis. And in those moments of crisis, you can't be worrying about the technology, you need it to just work. And so to tell us a bit more about how the American Red Cross is using communications to coordinate disaster response, please welcome up the Director of Planning and Situational Awareness, Jim McGowan, and American Red Cross volunteer and software engineer, John Laxon. Come on up. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right, so first of all, just start off, like how does messaging, how does SMS even pertain to the American Red Cross at all?
Well, Jeff, the Red Cross responds to about 70,000 disasters a year. Most of those are local home fires, single house. They're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 50 states, and we want to get to every single one within 2 hours. And to do that, we need to very effectively mobilize volunteers because it's a 100% volunteer force who responds to those disasters. So we need to locate them, direct them where to go, and then track information about their response.
Huh. So what did you build to facilitate these volunteers being more effective?
So what we can do is a dispatcher will learn of an incident. They can look up a list of volunteers who live nearby to that, whether that's San Francisco or Eureka. And then they can provide information via text message to the responder, driving directions, information about the family that's affected, how to contact them, and then track information. They can even send pictures in of the damage for our records.
Wow, so they hit a button and it'll blast out to people who volunteered saying, hey, we need volunteers, and people can reply, and it goes up on that operator dashboard for the dispatcher.
Exactly. So in 1 minute, you can text 50 people and say, hey, are you available to respond?
Wow, and why is this better for the volunteers?
This is better for the volunteers because it allows them to be more engaged with local responses and feel more effective that they're getting to families and providing the assistance that the Red Cross does in a more rapid manner.
Wow.
I think the other benefit, some of the other benefits for our volunteers, I mean, the most important thing for them is that they want to feel like the work that they're doing is meaningful, and that the work that they're doing is important, and they want their time they want to feel like their time is being valued. So what we've been able to do with John's application and Twilio SMS and working with Twilio.org is we've given them tools both for the dispatch process as well as the on-scene communications that make them more productive and more effective. And what's really important to us as staff is that we are creating an experience that gives them meaning. So by using these tools, we've created that environment where they feel like they're valued.
Wow, that's fantastic. And the dispatchers must feel so productive because they can now like triage multiple people communicating as opposed to like the old way making calls and there's sirens in the background and all sorts of stuff, right?
So in Chicago, where I'm from, we track about 2,500 incidents a year. We respond to about 3 or 4 a day, but we still have all this other noise going on as we're handling those incidents. So it allows the dispatcher to quickly take care of their business and focus on all the other things that are happening. Because while we're responding to disasters, immediately, oftentimes that response can happen. Working with a client happens over 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks sometimes, and so we're still working with those kind of incidents as well as doing just the stuff that's right in front of us.
Wow. And have you thought about other communication technologies that can further help you in coordinating volunteers and giving service to your clients?
Well, one of the things I'm really interested to hear more about is video. As we're following up with
anybody else?
Yeah.
As we're following up with our clients, in the 3, 4, 5 weeks, and sometimes 6 months or a year, that can be over very great distances where we maybe don't have physical presence. And so to be able to engage one-on-one with a family that's recovering from a disaster like a home fire and do that in a personal way would be very interesting to us.
Yep.
Fantastic. Well, let's get you set up with that. All right. Thank you very much. Let's hear it for Jim and John from the American Red Cross.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Very cool. So we've been talking today about how software is changing communications. And there's one person who I want to introduce next who's really been at the center of where software meets communications for a long time. He was the founder of Grand Central. Then at Google, he was the founder of Google Voice, and now he's the CEO and founder of Switch Communications. Please welcome the founder and CEO of Switch Communications, Craig Walker.
All right, well, great to be here. Thank you very much, Jeff. I think the reason I'm here is that I've actually been in voice over IP and next-gen communications going all the way back to like 1999, before really it was software-based. So let me flip through a couple of these. So we'll go through it. 99, I was working at a venture fund. I'm not a technical guy. We were looking at a lot, and this was late 90s. It was pretty heady times in the venture world. And communications and the internet and everything was exploding. Everything was high to the right. And we saw a pitch from a company called Dialpad.com. And Dialpad was using the internet for international long distance to make cheap phone calls. And this is back in the day when international long distance calls cost quite a bit, 30, 40, 50, 60 plus cents a minute. So by using the internet to take out a lot of the carriers and only pay that last mile, sounded like a pretty good investment, but it was really crappy quality. Everyone was on dial-up. There weren't a lot of standards. We were pretty much figuring stuff out as we went along. And if you fast forward all the way to today, now launching enterprise-grade, phone systems, unified communication systems, doing that all in software, all using these next-gen technologies is pretty impressive change. But things like Twilio didn't exist back then. It was a much harder process. So. One question, like, why telephony? And telephony to me, and communications in general, is this gift that keeps on giving. It's amazing. It's characterized by a couple of things. Number one, it's a massive market. Almost everyone on the planet is a consumer. So it's a massive, multi-trillion-dollar market. Even the smallest little corners of it are valuable. Like audio conferencing. No one's innovated in audio conferencing for 30 years. That's a $5 billion market. Awesome. Number two, it's traditionally been dominated and controlled by large companies that once were monopolists or still are in some jurisdictions. And those guys, even if they're not monopolists today, they just don't have the DNA of how do I make innovative, compelling, great design, useful products for end users. If you look at it, you think about like what is the last feature that's rolled out from a provider, from a large incumbent provider. When you see the commercials today, it's all about who's got the best network, who's got the latest handset, who can cut your bill in half. but you never see anyone innovating on features. And that's because it's just not necessarily in their DNA. I think the last one, frankly, might have been call waiting, caller ID, three-way calling. I mean, these are things that are 30 years old, and they all have them. So lack of innovation, and that's kind of goes to the last little guy on the right, is they have more lawyers than designers. I mean, and thank God they are this way, because we wouldn't have the opportunities to come disrupt if they were much more nimble and if they cared about the end user as much as we do. So, going back in time, kind of how it looked. So coming out of this investment in Dialpad, things were looking great. It was 2000, the internet, people were using 56K modems, the NASDAQ was climbing like crazy, and that's our little Dialpad client. And it allowed you just, didn't even have to download software. Fired up a little Java applet, you'd punch in a phone number, you'd connect. The first thing you'd say is, oh my God, I'm talking to you over the internet. And if they heard that, it was over the internet. But when it's saving you a lot of money, it's actually people will go through a lot of stuff. And frankly, this was, we had a lot of users, primarily in like the Middle East, India, Africa, calling the US and being able to save 50, 60, 40, 30 cents a minute was great. So we were, everything was looking great. We were figuring stuff out, building towards some specs that didn't even exist yet. SIP didn't exist yet. This was all H323. But 2001, fast forward, and everything kind of falls apart, right? The funding dries up, the internet bubble pops, companies going out of business left and right, and Dialpad, which I loved, had raised $65 million in its first 6 months, managed to spend more than that in its first 18 months. And so yours truly was dropped in as CEO to try to turn this around before we had to turn off the lights. And it was a dark, dark time, believe me. So my first day of CEO at Dialpad was effectively this headline that was in the Chronicle, written by David Lazarus. He used to write all the business stuff. Dialpad looks like a dot bomb. That gasping sound you hear in Santa Clara is Dialpad communications. Not what you want to see your first day of work, right? And you're now in charge of putting it back together. The good thing is, though, as a first-time CEO, the expectations were pretty low on this one, right? I like to talk about it like operating on a corpse, because if it dies, hey, not my fault. But, so we inwardly, we had to go through terrible layoffs, take it down to a small team. And when I say small, like 15 people from a high at one point of over 300. So small team. But we were able to kind of turn it around and slowly rebuild it. But I love the last line in David Lazarus' column, which is, internet telephony was a good idea while it lasted. That's a crack up. So now it's, we're 14 years later, and it's, now Skype is doing 40% of the world's international long distance traffic, and seems to still be a good idea. The next best thing that came along, kind of in this transition toward today, was Skype. Like, if you guys recall, the first time you made a phone call on Skype, it was like, holy crap, that's voice over IP? Are you kidding me? That sounds awesome. And it was because, luckily enough, by 2003, internet high-speed bandwidth, broadband penetration was high enough that there were enough people on it. And Skype was able to use this killer codec from Global IP Sound, this company out of Stockholm, that had a really high bandwidth, great definition codec. So it sounded awesome. And that really was kind of like the beginning to think that, hey, voice over IP is no longer just low cost, low quality. It can actually be very, very high quality. And that's, that was awesome. So luckily enough, the next year, 2 years later, Yahoo was feeling threatened by Skype, wanted to put voice calling into Yahoo Messenger, so they acquired Dialpad, which by that time we had rebuilt and were actually profitable. So that was great. But the thing that I wanted to do, the thing that I didn't really like about that whole scene is just being a cheaper way to make phone calls didn't seem like the most interesting way to use next-gen communications. So left Yahoo and started a company called Grand Central. And Grand Central was all about how do you abstract the feature layer from the endpoints? Like, how do I move everything to the cloud where you, the end user, can say, hey, when this person calls, ring these phones. When this person calls, play this voicemail greeting versus that one. When this person calls, block them and send them to a spam folder. Transcribe all my voicemails, email it to me, text it to me, keep it all in the cloud, save it forever. Kind of seemed like that's the way it should be. So that was Grand Central. Luckily enough for us, Google liked it. We got acquired in 2007. It became Google Voice and launched to tens of millions of people. I'm very proud of that. The other cool thing that happened right after that was Twilio launched. And it was interesting. I remember meeting with the founders of Twilio while I was at Google and talking to them about their platform and their vision. And at the time, I'm like, how many developers could there possibly be? Like, how big of a market could this be? 700,000+ developers later, clearly it's a pretty big market. But the amazing thing about Twilio, and I think you all know it, is as a service provider, before Twilio came around, we had to do all the hard work. You had to go cut deals with telco carriers every place you wanted to get phone numbers. You had to go negotiate rates and maintain your routing tables and your least cost routing tables. And then when you got bills at the end of the month, you had to reconcile the bills to make sure they were charging you the right amount. And when there were tickets and people said that my phone call dropped, you had to go debug it and see if it was your fault or the carrier's fault, talk to their NOCs and try to get all this stuff done. You had to build that. And everywhere you wanted to be, you had to replicate that. So US, you had to do it. You had to do it with a number of different carriers. They all wanted security deposits. They all wanted traffic forecasts. It's a real big overhead. And so when things like Twilio came along, you now were able to offload that, which is pretty amazing. The next big thing, 2011, WebRTC. So WebRTC, I love WebRTC. It was part of my former real-time communications group at Google. And Google was good enough to go buy Global IP Sound, the company that made that amazing voice engine and codec that Skype was using in the early days. And then not only did they go buy it, then they made it open sourced so everyone can go use it, which as a startup guy, we could never afford it. We never licensed it. It was too big, it was too expensive. Now it's free, and it's free in the browser, and you don't need downloads anymore. And so now, you kind of combine the two of, you got Twilio doing all your telephony backend for you, you got WebRTC doing all this amazing front-end connectivity. Like, the future's pretty awesome, and it's still a lot to be done. So there's a lot of great WebRTC users out there. I'm sure you recognize most of these. A few of ours, we launched right after that, we launched this company called Uber Conference, and Uber Conference was all about how do we make conference calling better, right? It drove me crazy that in 2012, that a conference call experience was still dial a phone number, enter some ridiculous number of pins, hear a beep, and say, hey, it's Craig, who's here? And then hear a bunch of voices, try to figure out who's who, and then as soon as you get going, first thing you hear is another beep. And it's like, hey, sorry, it's Alex, I just joined, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. Who joined, who left? Ridiculous, right? But that is truly the first conference call I got on in 1985. That still happens on the majority of conference calls today. So we wanted to say, okay, forget it. We'll give everyone their own phone number. There's no pins. People dial it. They're in the call. We give you a notification someone's dialed in or you're already dialed in. They come in. And more importantly, we give you a URL so you can see who's on the call. You can see who just joined. We'll show you their LinkedIn profile so you can know who it is, who you're talking to. Is it the intern? Is it the CEO? Is it the lawyer? Is it the marketer? And then you can have all the controls you want. You want to lock the room. You're worried about someone listening in. Lock the room. No one else can join. You want to record it? Hit the record button. It's all controlled through the web. You don't have to figure out what the codes are on the phone to do this stuff. It's just all there. Seems like that's how it should have been a long time ago. So that's one of the things. So we use WebRTC to do that. And then we also launched our enterprise voice cloud-based communication product, Switch, which is literally entirely cloud-based WebRTC-based, full company enterprise phone system. You get an IVR, 1 for sales, 2 for support, all that type of stuff. But then every employee who no longer is sitting at their desk in front of their PBX phone waiting for it to ring can be productive on their cell phone, their tablet, their laptop, from home. Basically, all of your own devices now become part of your business phone system. So again, when you look at this transition from hardware of this multi-trillion-dollar industry to software of this multi-trillion-dollar industry, is being able to have that extensibility to get away from those trappings of, and it just still drives me crazy that like the vast, vast majority of business phone systems are a PBX with a big server in the closet, with an IT department maintaining it, with a desk phone waiting there for someone to use that no one is even using anymore. So when I look at the future, I think voice and video remain the key to me. Like there's all these other things, other ways to communicate. Twitter, I can blast out updates. Facebook, my 800 friends get to see what I'm up to. I'll email probably a little more select group of people than that. I'll IM with even a little more select. I'll send a text message to even a smaller circle. But the people that you'll actually pick up a phone call and talk to, or get on a video conference with, or get on a video call with, those are the most powerful, impactful, important conversations. Like that's where you actually get stuff done. And I'll even posit that as those other channels get more and more cluttered and less useful, that voice and video are going to become more and more important going forward. So what does the future hold? Like I like to think, like conference calling drove me crazy, business phone systems drive me crazy. So like what still sucks? Where are the carriers still getting you? What hasn't been disrupted yet? So international roaming. You cross the Canadian border and all of a sudden it costs $1 a minute to call the US. That makes no sense. You're being ripped off. Someone solve that. TruePhone, please keep doing what you're doing. Business phone systems, terrible. Call any business in America and ask to be transferred to a coworker. They're gonna hang up on you and they're gonna give you the guy's phone number directly because he knows he's gonna hang up on you. Call centers, horrible. I was on with Comcast the other day. It took me like literally 5 minutes to get to the right department, and I had to give them my address, my account information, my phone number, multiple different times. There's got to be a way to drop me right into the right person with that information already done. And video conference rooms, going to this is embarrassing, but you go to raise money, you go talk to VCs, Sand Hill Road. They are doing pitches all day long in video conference rooms with partners from all over. Every single time it takes 10 minutes to get the stuff set up. It's like literally you do that all day long. So there's still plenty of opportunities out there. It's easier now than ever. You have Twilio, you have WebRTC, you don't have to do that crazy stuff. You just have to come up with great ideas and execute them. So the future is now. In fact, in October, it will be the Back to the Future date. So it's coming soon. Thank you very much. Thanks, Brad. All right.
That was great. So Craig took us back to, I think, 1985 in his talk. I'm going to go back a bit further. See, it was almost 150 years ago that Alexander Graham Bell made the first telephone by wiring up a speaker and some microphone and some copper wire in the middle. He made that first phone call and said, "Come here, Watson, I need you," because he had spilled acid on his pantaloons. I don't know if you guys know that's a true story. So 150 years ago, the first phone call. And you think about what's changed in the 150 years that have occurred since then. I mean, all of our technology has gotten so magical, right? We went from, we started with vacuum tubes to transistors to integrated circuits, and copper wires turned into fiber optics, turned into wireless, and you have a supercomputer in your pocket. Yet how we interact with that technology, with that communications, has changed very little, right? You still like that, the app on your phone is still stupid, right? You went from dialing with an operator, to dialing with a rotary, to dialing with a number pad. A number pad, DTMF dialing came out in the 1960s, 1963. And you think about it, not much has changed in the last 50 years since dialing with a push button came out. The phone app on your iPhone is just a touchscreen representation of that 150-year-old network. It still has those buttons. And there's really nothing you can do that you couldn't do with that old phone, the old push-button phone. It's crazy. The supercomputer in your pocket is constrained by the 150-year-old network. Right? And we feel this all the time when we interact with the network. Like, let's imagine you're on your iPhone, and you pull up the app for an airline because you want to change your flight. So you log in, you see your flight details, and you click on the flight details, and you get the screen here that allows you to check in, but you also talk to an agent if you want to change the flight. And if you click that button, we've all had this experience, right? It pops you out into some toll-free phone number, and then you're on the dialer. You're on the 150-year-old network. Right, what happens? System answers, it says, please enter your 70-digit account number, please tell us your mom's dog's maiden name, and all this stuff. Right, you're like, why am I doing this? I was just in your app. You knew who I was. You knew what flight I'm on. Why do I have to go through all this stuff? It's because all of the context is lost when you get dumped onto this 150-year-old network. But today, the context of our lives lives in software. Who we are, what we're doing, where we're going, who we're friends with, who we do business with. And so far as software has started to reshape communications, software primarily has made communications cheaper, right? Voice over IP, things like that. But it's time that software made our communications fundamentally better. Because we are still in sort of this horse and buggy, like horseless carriage era of software communications. Right? We've created a cheaper facsimile of the last century's technology. But voice over IP still just does the same boring things that the old network did. It's not yet fundamentally better. In fact, we have yet to take advantage of this new medium. And that's exciting because software is only limited by our imagination. Right? If you can dream it up, write it in code, run it on a CPU and a network, then it's possible. And we at Twilio think that this is going to bring about fundamentally better communications than what we've ever seen in the past. Why? Because you can make them contextual. Contextual communications is one of the main ways that our communications are going to improve because we can integrate it with software and integrate it with the rest of everything else that we're doing. Let's imagine that airline app again. But this time when you click Talk to Agent, you aren't dumped onto the 150-year-old network. Inside the app, you're now communicating. And it says connecting you to an agent. You finally reach an agent, and you say, yeah, I'm looking to change that flight. By the way, the agent says not, please enter your 40-digit account number. The agent says, hi, Jeff. How can I help you with flight 677? Because she knows exactly what I'm looking at. Karen then looks around, helps me find some new flights, pushes a card to my screen and says, hey, how about this flight? Is this the one you want? And I can click confirm. Then maybe the security practice says, okay, just to confirm that you are who you say you are, please touch the Touch ID on your phone to complete this. Great, I see you've authenticated. Your flight is successfully changed. Is there anything else I can help you with? And this entire transaction can probably be done in about 30 seconds. You'd wait on hold for far longer. Why? Because you have to spend so much time communicating context to each other. And we think that this is how communications is going to get better, by bringing context into it. So one of the companies who's really embracing contextual communications to create a great customer experience is Porch. Please welcome up the COO of Porch, Asha Sharma. Asha.
Hey, how are you?
Very good. Can you begin by just telling us a little bit about Porch?
Sure. So Porch, our mission is to help people love their homes. And at the most basic level, we do that by connecting homeowners with the best home services professionals for them. So think contractor, electrician, plumber, painter. And we're based in Seattle, and at the core, we're using data to fuel all this. We have insights into 3.2 million professionals and about 130 million of their projects.
Wow. And why is communications then important to what you're doing?
So when we started off on this whole thing, we felt like we wanted to help people find the right professional for their home. And once we cracked that, we realized that the pain isn't actually getting the professional for your home, it's connecting with the right professional for your home. Most times, about 9 times out of 10, people can't actually get the right pro on the phone. And so we've seen that responsiveness is the key to retaining great customer satisfaction and users over time.
That, like, you've had this experience, like the toilet's overflowing, and you call a plumber, and you leave a voicemail.
And it's like 24-hour service,
yeah, and they
but
call you
nobody
back like
actually
3 days later.
answers. And
yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So getting someone on the phone right now is critical. So how do you embed real-time communications into your applications in order to make that possible?
So there's a few different ways. For some of the smaller projects, we do have an application where you can instantly book maintenance professionals. And so how that works is I'm a homeowner, I go in, I have a plumber issue, my toilet's overflowing, book a plumber. That goes out to our entire network of plumbers. They can pick it up real time and see the details of my project and know if it's something they can get to or not. If that doesn't work, because sometimes plumbers are sleeping, that actually routes to a personal concierge where they have the project details right on their screen and they can help facilitate a connection outside your service area and just get that done for you.
And so that pro who gets that phone call, how do they know what the context is?
Yeah, so there's a few different context points. There's ones in which that homeowner actually enters themselves. Hey, my toilet is overflowing, I need you now. But there's also context that we can create because we have a lot of data. So we know based on your phone number where you likely live. We know the value of your home. We know the past projects you have done. And so we can help convince a professional, hey, this is in your service area. This is the right type of project based on the work you've done. And you should probably pick up this phone because it's this big of a project.
And they see it right on the screen.
Correct.
When they're getting the call.
Yes. So it's what retail would call point of purchase. This is point of project is what we call it.
So, like in a perfect world, how would you use all this data, all this context that you have, about customers and what's happening to build like the perfect situation for homeowners?
So we talk about this all the time at Porch. Home ownership is personal, and it deserves to go beyond just the convenience of somebody answering your phone. Imagine a world in which there was context to not just what you wanted to do today, but all the projects that you were planning in the future, and you could actually plan with a project, with a professional, no matter where they are. So you can go through your inspiration wherever that professional is. You can get guidance and advice where they can be a partner, not just a transactional, let me just help you get one project done. They can knock off your to-do list based on the history of your home and all the things that you want and love.
And you can bring that context, like the history of your home and your to-do list, right into the conversation when you're talking to that pro.
Exactly. They now not only have what you are sharing with them in the moment of a conversation, but in the past and in the future. Some of the other things we've talked about too is right now, a professional for larger projects often has to come out many times to actually know if they can support the work, if they have the materials, if the labor size. You multiply that with 4 or 5 pros if you're a smart shopper. How can you streamline that? What would a world look like in which video could do that, and collecting data on your home and having a platform, a communication platform where that was just seamless and you could get the right professional and avoid all of that work?
Yeah, instead of having the pro have to come out to just figure out what you have, like you just show, oh, here's the work we need done, and here's the sink, and here's the...
Exactly, and time is your biggest commodity, and in this day and age, it's a shame that we haven't been able to crack that problem as an industry.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Asha. Let's hear it for Asha and Porch. Thank you very much. Really cool use case. You should all download the app. It's really cool. So contextual communications. We talked about how embedding communications into our applications is what is going to happen to all of our communications. We believe that the days of the monolithic application is going to get broken up, and every app will begin to communicate. And we started Twilio in 2008, and we launched with a voice product. You can make and receive phone calls, anywhere in the world. And a few years later, we added to that text messaging as the second medium of communication that Twilio supported. And last month, we announced the third time in the company's history of adding a new medium to the toolkit, and that is Twilio Video. So to talk, yeah. So to walk through the details of Twilio Video, please welcome up Director of Product Management for Twilio SDKs, Rob Brazier. Welcome, Ben.
What's up, Signal? Man, I am so excited to be here with all of you today to talk about Twilio Video. Our team has put in countless hours to get ready for this moment. And as always, we can't wait to see what you do with these capabilities. Over the next 20 minutes, we're going to give you some amazing sneak peeks at what's possible with Twilio Video. You're going to see some incredible demos. But before we talk about those, I want to take a few minutes to give you some sense for how we think about real-time communications at Twilio, for the platform that we're creating that will allow you to reinvent communications. The story starts with Twilio Client. We introduced Twilio Client in 2011. This was before WebRTC existed. Our vision was to make it easy to embed voice calling into any web application. That vision of contextual communications that Jeff just talked about, we saw that, and we wanted to create it. In 2012, in November, Google released Chrome 23, the first version of the Chrome web browser to support WebRTC, and we moved quickly to take advantage of these new capabilities. 3 days later, we launched Twilio Client WebRTC, and that's when things really took off. 18 months ago, we were together, and we told you that your applications were driving more minutes of WebRTC through Twilio's platform than any other platform on the planet, and that growth has only accelerated. In fact, it's up 500% since the last time we spoke. In 2015, your apps will drive a tremendous volume through Twilio, 1 billion WebRTC minutes. Give yourselves a hand. That's incredible. See, we believe in WebRTC. It's a critical building block if we're going to reinvent communications. It provides ubiquitous access to mic and camera. It gives us the best codecs. It's a very important piece of the puzzle, but it's just one piece. Last year, we introduced the second piece, a product called Network Traversal Service. Network Traversal provides on-demand stun and turn to reliably establish peer-to-peer voice and video sessions. Today, we're going to introduce a few more pieces to this Lego set. The first problem we have to solve is one of reach. Your users aren't always in Chrome or Firefox. You need to reach them in mobile apps, in desktop applications. And so today, we're announcing a new suite of SDKs, Twilio Real-Time Communications SDKs for iOS, Android, desktop, and JavaScript. These SDKs bring the best WebRTC stack to their target platforms. We've used Google's latest code, but we've also pulled in codecs that Google doesn't even support yet, the latest versions of Opus and H.264. You can get started with video today. Log into the Twilio account portal, click on video, enter the code printed on your Signal badge, and get started with the JavaScript SDK. And watch that space. In a few weeks, you'll see iOS coming shortly and Android just after that. The next building block is we have to connect all these users to the Twilio platform. Whenever you use the real-time communications SDKs, you're using Twilio's global endpoint registration network to manage the reachability of all your users. So we've got connectivity, we've got voice and video. We need something else. We need to actually get our users talking to one another. To do that, we've created a new primitive. We wanted to change the way we communicate. This one-to-one call model we've been stuck with, the one that you experience when someone rings your phone, isn't good enough. So today we're announcing conversations. a new API for multi-party peer-to-peer voice and video communications. With Conversations, you can begin a call as an audio-only call, easily add video, and downgrade again. You can begin a call with one participant and easily upgrade to multiple participants. This is all controlled through an easy-to-use client-side API, but you can also integrate it with your applications even better than before using a robust REST API. These are the composable building blocks for reinventing communications. This is the Twilio Video platform. So to give you a sense of what's possible with Twilio Video, I'd like to welcome up our friends from Zendesk, Adrian McDermott and George Koltov.
Hi, everyone. Zendesk is a customer service platform, a platform for customer engagement. We have more than 57,000 customers around the world, large and small, and we've been working with Twilio for quite a long time. I actually spoke at the first Twilio conference, which I believe would have fit on this stage. Like, the event has moved on a lot. And at that time, I think it was really exciting to be working with voice. Now, 4 years later, things have changed a great deal. 4 years ago, if you think about video, Rob would have been in his bedroom futzing with his webcam, trying to get chat roulette working, probably failing, and it would have been very painful. Now, grandparents all over America are buying iPads, iPhones, so they can communicate with their surly grandchildren. You know, trying to talk to teenagers is always difficult. So things have changed a great deal. Video devices are ubiquitous. They're in everyone's pocket, and it actually just works. That gives us an opportunity to really think about the way we can engage from a customer service perspective. When Twitter came along, customer service departments initially feared it, then they embraced it as a way to communicate with consumers, and it changed the game for engagement. We just announced our Facebook Messenger product in the same way. It's changing the game for customer service. Each channel is radically different and behaves in a different way. Video will be the same. We just don't know yet what the answers to the questions of how it will be are. We don't even know what the questions are. So we've been thinking about it and working with it. That said, though, video is kind of already here. We're all familiar with Amazon Mayday. There's also, you know, my favorite example is an app called Be My Eyes. It comes from an NGO in Denmark. And they have 200,000 sighted people on their network and 20,000 visually impaired people. And if you live alone as a visually impaired person, once or twice a day you need to borrow someone's eyes. So you can call up Be My Eyes with Siri and then hold it up and be like, is this milk out of date? The pinto beans, is that the can in the middle or the one on the left? Right? You can answer all of these questions, and for the sighted volunteers, it's a great way to do something more valuable than playing Candy Crush. So we at Zendesk began working with Rob's team, thinking about video, and we started building prototypes. And what we kind of wanted to show you today was one of the prototypes we built, and think about how video could work in a customer service context. What we don't think is that every conversation which currently happens over voice or over email is going to shift to bidirectional video. I don't think anybody wants that, right? No one wants to be the customer service manager walking into a department meeting saying, all right, from now on, everyone has to wear pants. You know, it's just weird. Consumers will be watching. It's going to be different. There'll be a transition, a shift, and the use cases will be different. So let's, this is George. George is acting as a customer service agent on the other end of Zendesk. Let's bring up Zendesk, and we can take a look at that. So here on the left, we have George's view of tickets, and George is up on the local stream. And if you think about handling customer service at scale, right, you need to be able to route to available agents, see who's online, make sure that tickets are handled, interact in an omni-channel way with voice, with Twitter, you know, with Facebook, with Messenger, and all of these different things, which is super complicated. So the app was going to take care of all of that on the back end. On the front end, we just added into our embeddables platform, our platform for mobile and web developers. We added in the capability to use Twilio Video. So I'm going to bring up our example app, remember the date, and pray to the demigods and say, hey, I want to contact you. I have a problem. I want to have a video call. Let's see how we do. It's looking for an agent on my phone. There it is. George is answering. So we've created a ticket to monitor this interaction. And now we're live streaming. Thank you. So I could be, you know, I could be out in the wilds of Burkina Faso inspecting a wellhead, trying to figure out what was wrong with it and getting a technician's help, right? I could be in the jungles of of Bolivia looking at a chemo pump in a remote hospital needing some help from someone who understood it. But what I'm actually doing is I'm going to take a selfie because it's also kind of awesome. So George, you want to do a screenshot? Ooh. There we go. Equally valuable, I think we'll all agree. So, you know, we're super excited at Zendesk to be working with Twilio on video. And what we're really excited about is, you know, to see what developers can build in terms of new ways to interact with consumers, both in terms of, you know, unidirectional, bidirectional video. We think it can change the game of customer service. And there are applications that we can't anticipate that will be built on top of the Twilio platform and the Zendesk platform. So thanks very much, Rob.
Thanks, Adrian. It was awesome. So you've heard a lot about composable building blocks today. There are few services as powerful as those offered by our partners at IBM, few building blocks that can do as much as theirs. I'd like you all to give a warm welcome to IBM's Jeff Sloyer and Damian Heredia.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, Jeff and Rob, for having me today. Excited to be part of the launch for Twilio's video APIs. First, let me talk about IBM Bluemix. IBM Bluemix is a platform as a service. In fact, it's the world's largest platform as a service based on Cloud Foundry, with over 8,000 new users a week coming onto the platform. We get next slide here. This one here. What these builders are doing are coming to the platform to run their code, run their app without focusing on the infrastructure. So you can do that in Cloud Foundry, in Docker, OpenStack. You choose the way to run your app. But at the heart of Bluemix is the catalog of curated API services. That's those composable services, from real-time communications by Twilio, or Watson cognitive services, IoT, mobile, data management, analytics, web and app. All of these curated into a platform that you as the builder can come on and build new engaging apps with your users. So today, we're going to show you a demo of some of this capability with the new Twilio video APIs. And one of the great things about my job is I get to work with enterprises that are transforming their businesses with new models of engagement. One of those companies is based in Houston, Texas. They're the renowned cancer treatment and research facility and hospital based out of Houston, Texas. And they wanted a better way to engage with doctors in remote locations so they could share that expertise throughout Brownsville or Laredo or Arizona and different parts of the world so that you could still get that great expert care, but from a remote location. So to that, we've also wanted to show off today taking that direction to extend it all the way down to the patient. So let me show you the app, if we can get it on the screens on the side. I'll go over and launch it. Now I'm going to log in as the doctor. Now this app here, if you can see on the left, is a list of my schedule for today as a doctor. I can see who I need to have consultations with. I can also see their patient info, the reason for the consult, background, doctor notes, etc. I can also click through and look at images, CAT scan, pathology labs. I can do this in real time with the patient directly over the video. Here's a CAT scan that I can look at. It's all in one place. You can also drill down into Watson itself, and it will tell you about genomic research, clinical trials that are best fit for this patient, which drugs have interactions that you want to avoid. All of that is given to the doctor to provide better care. What we wanted to do today is show using video directly with the patient. So if you don't mind, in a not so creepy way, I'm going to be the doctor, Jeff's going to be the patient. So I'm going to go ahead and kick off my video, and why don't you tell me about your end?
So here on the main screen, we have a simple Node.js app we built in Bluemix, and it uses a database on the back end called IBM Cloud, a NoSQL database that gives the patient the same access to the information the doctor has in the app you saw earlier. So before we jump into it, I'm going to call your attention to a little gray area underneath the video. Watch it as we're going along. Watson's going to hopefully transcribe the whole conversation in real time. Uses WebSockets to talk to Watson in real time. It's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So I'm going to go ahead and start the video chat. Allow access to my microphone and camera. Let's scroll down, and it should pop up in a second. And there we go.
Here you are. Please. Real-time video via Twilio.
So Jeff, thanks for doing your follow-up from your visit to Houston remotely through our video system here. Tell me about how you're doing.
Pretty good, except I've been having a couple interactions with some of my drugs you gave me. I was a little worried about some of them. I was wondering if we could talk through a couple different options for some of the steroids that you have given me.
Sorry to hear that. Yes, we have a couple options. Let's walk through in detail each of those and find the best one for you. Now let me stop it there. Obviously you get the picture. Pretty powerful stuff. You can change the way you engage with your customers, with your users, but also what we've done with a composable environment is used Watson to translate the speech to text in real time. Now we could do that for various reasons, to document the consult, to get better insight into the patient-doctor's performance. Let's actually make some changes in real time.
Yeah.
So let me jump over here. What I'm going to do is actually add a service from Watson called Personality Insights that takes data, whether it's social data, books, papers, anything the author's written or used, including now video transcripts, and gives insight into that personality, the personality of that person. So what I've done is switched over to the Bluemix console, and as you can see here, I have a Node app running. I have Twilio bound, a cloud database, NoSQL database in the back end, and the speech to text. I'm just going to go ahead and add a new service. So I'm going to jump over to the composable API catalog and select Personality Insights. I can look at the documentation, figure out what it does. Now, it actually evaluates it on 20 to 30 different attributes. We've only picked a few here to show off. I'm not going to restage yet because I'm going to go over and actually edit some code. So this Node app, what we're going to do is we already have the payload here. You can see it, the analyzed transcript coming in, patient transcript. That's the payload that we got from the video. So I'm going to go ahead and do an insights.profile, jump into adding the payload directly to the Watson service, patient transcript, and close that, and then go right to the next function. Now we've done some pre-coding, post-coding. It basically gets back the results from the personality service, chooses which attributes we're going to show, and we've also done on the UI side, if the payload exists, to go ahead and show the results. So I'm going to hit save, jump over to the command line. Now with Bluemix, you can edit locally, you can edit in the cloud with us, you can choose your tooling, but once you're done, you can go ahead and push it up to the cloud. So Twilio Video Live. And it's going to take the code locally I've changed, push it up to that Node app, and let it run. Now, let me switch back over to the iPad app.
This one.
Oops, wrong one. Get out of this app. Like I said, we had adjusted the UI so the payload's there. And now, if I have text from a video chat that's longer than 100 lines, unfortunately ours was not, you can see that I have personality insights in the upper right of this patient's history. So openness to change is at 90-some%, trust. I can look at Jacobs and the trust is higher. You can track this over time just based on their video interactions with that doctor. It gives insight in that personality. Now you can use this for various reasons. Marketing, social, helping call centers do better jobs. It's all available through the Twilio API and then adding the Bluemix composable services to build better apps. Okay? Thanks for having us today. We're excited about the launch.
Great job.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff and Damien from IBM. You know, we just saw some really great use cases for video, right? We saw Zendesk to create cool customer service interactions, and we just saw from IBM creating patient-doctor interactions, all via video on mobile and browsers. But you know, I have a use case of my own that hits kind of close to home for me. See, my dad, who lives in Michigan, loves to read books over FaceTime to my son, Micah. And they do it like almost every day. And he reads the book to him, and my dad's holding the camera, and you can see he's kind of like, juggling the camera while he's turning the page of the book, and the book's usually pretty out of focus, and it's all over the place. Nonetheless, they love this experience. And so I was thinking, wouldn't it be neat if we had an e-reader application where you could read a book, and one person turned the page, it turned for the other person. And then you could have video so that you could see each other while you did this. It would be an e-reader, especially for grandpa and grandson to read a book across the country. And so let's build it. We're going to build this application live on the stage. I'm going to start by showing you how the Twilio Video SDK works so that you're able to see what I'm doing while I build it. So the Twilio Real-Time Communications SDK is what you embed into your browser or your mobile application, and that exposes an endpoint, a named point on the Twilio network. And that endpoint can receive invites to participate in conversations. And those conversations then have number of participants in them. This is sort of the data model for the Twilio SDK. So now let me go over to the computer here. And I'm going to show you. We wrote the reader application already, this sort of collaborative ebook, e-reader. We built this application already. And here it is. We commissioned some artwork for a custom book that we wrote, illustrated by our friend Tatsuya Aoki. And you can see it's a book about my son's favorite topic, the space shuttle. 5 minutes to launch. 5 minutes to launch, the shuttle prepares. The commander turns on auxiliary power units. You get the idea. And someone connected to the other side actually sees the pages turn as I turn them, which is really neat. But this is just the beginning. We have a book, but we don't have any video. So let's add video to it. So I'm going to open up in my IDE the application. You can see it's just a basic web application. In fact, we're using the awesome Reveal.js framework in order to make this book work. Speaking of composable elements, it's really neat that you can bring together something like the Reveal.js framework, which is usually used for presentations, and actually write an e-reader out of it. Awesome. But I can scroll down to the bottom here, and now it's time to add video to this application. So I can start here, and I'm going to add a few divs. And these divs will hold the video elements to put on the screen. So there we go. We've got our 3 divs for the 3 video elements, my son, myself, my dad. Now I'm going to go down here to the JavaScript, and I'm going to add in the Twilio SDK. Great, now that the Twilio SDK is embedded into my application with just 1 line of JavaScript, I can start writing some script with it. So I'm going to start by just writing a document ready handler that will execute when the page is finished loading. And the one thing we basically need to do here is initialize the Twilio endpoint. So I can say new twilio.endpoint. And the initializer here just takes a string. It's a security token generated on the server to identify this client. And because we have an untrusted client, you need to generate a secure token using secret. So we have that. It's been generated by our controller right here in the view. I'm just going to dump it in right there. And the one thing we have to do is tell it to start listening for connections. There we go. That's all we have to do to initialize the endpoint. But I'm going to write one more function here, which is once a conversation is started, we want to write some view code to actually paint it to the screen and do the right things. And so I'm going to write a function here called showConversation. And it takes an object from our SDK called the conversation object representing the conversation that's happening. And when we create a new conversation, I'm going to do a few things. First, I'm going to keep it WinFo in the global scope. Next, I'm going to write a handler for when people join this conversation. So I'm going to listen for the event of a participant connected. And that's going to receive a participant object representing the person. So when somebody joins, first I'll just log to the console, participant. So we can see that they've joined. And then I'm going to paint their media to the screen. And so I'm going to say participant. By the way, participant is one of the hardest words to type reliably. It's only slightly harder than the word conversation. So participant.media.attach. This takes the media from this stream and puts it to the screen, and all I give it is a selector. So I'm going to select by ID what I already created, those divs up there. .address. So I name those divs for the registration and the names of the usernames on the network. And then I'm going to do one more thing here when we initialize our conversation. I'm going to say conversation.local media. That's my own camera. and I'm going to attach it to that div I created for myself. So there we go. That's all the code I need to write to add video into this application. Now I'm going to go back to that web browser, and I'm going to reload this app. And if I open up my JavaScript console here, if I have an endpoint, that means it's connected to Twilio, so this code worked. So now that we have our endpoint, we're connected to the Twilio network, all I need to do is say endpoint.create conversation, and the argument I give it is the username of the first person I want to invite to this conversation. And let's invite Micah first. And this returns a promise. So after this is created, we're using promises, the most modern JavaScript around. We are going to then call the function that draws that conversation to the screen. So I already wrote that. That's our show conversation function. And I hit return. And if I didn't make any mistakes, and I click allow access to my camera and microphone, and we should see, wait for it, wait for it. There I am, and I see Micah has joined. Where is he? I should note, this is the most dangerous live demo ever, not because of the code, because we're dealing with my dad's Wi-Fi and a toddler. All right, so let's see. Should we try this again? Let's try it one more time. I'm going to say create conversation. I'll just run that again. Give access to my camera and microphone. There we go. Hello. Hi, Micah.
How are you? How are you?
Hey. How you doing, Micah? Hey, Micah, should we read this book together? 5 minutes to launch. 5 minutes to launch. The shuttle prepares. The commander turns on the auxiliary power unit. You guys can see, by the way, Micah is using an iPad. So this call is iOS to the browser, all with just a little bit of code there. And I turn the page.
These are called hangers, Dada. Hangers.
All systems are good. You can see when I turn the page, it turns the page for him. 2 minutes to launch. The astronauts are ready. They put away their... You know what? The point wasn't for me to talk to Micah. I can do that all the time. The point was for my dad to do it. So now we've got the conversation object. In the window here, all I say is invite my dad. So we run that, and we've invited my dad to join the conversation here. And if my dad has good Wi-Fi at his house, which is always a risk with dads. Yeah, you can see us.
You've been so patient.
All right, we'll try that one more time again. Live coding, fun. But we'll try. We did tell my dad that this was going on, so hopefully he didn't forget. All right. Well, there you have it. I don't know what happened to my dad, but let's move on. Let's hear it for Micah. Bye, Micah. All right, so there you have it, live coding demo of how easy it is to add video to your applications using this SDK with these primitives. Very easy to use. But something we have not yet talked about is the business model for how Twilio is thinking about pricing these new SDKs. So let's talk about that for a second. You know, this world of software communication is new, and there's been other companies who have actually brought products to market, APIs for developers to do video and stuff like that. The problem is, none of them have got the business model right. So on one side, you've got people who are treating this like a carrier and pretending like it's exactly like the world used to be and pricing it in the same way, charging you some amount of money per minute that you're connected. The problem is software-based peer-to-peer communication is not a carrier. In fact, most of the time, that media is going peer-to-peer. It doesn't cost anything. And so they're basically selling air. So this model doesn't scale at all. The other business model we've seen is that of a software as a service model, right? Creating packages, like charging a certain amount per user per month. or having a package where you can have up to some number of connections. But there's always an asterisk or two after the pricing, right? Because you have to make assumptions about the usage model and the business model and the usage patterns when you try to do packages. So you either end up paying for stuff you're not using, or you hit some kind of fair usage cap, and there's an asterisk that says, if you go over this amount, we're going to keep charging you a lot more. So the idea of trying to package it into SaaS is just not how infrastructure works. You need to make too many assumptions about your customer's business model when you build this infrastructure. This doesn't work at all. And I think people who try to price this new software-based communications in the carrier or the SaaS model, right, they're optimizing for this being a niche market. And they're trying to extract all sorts of value in this very small niche market. But at Twilio, we don't believe this is a niche market. We believe software represents the future of all of our communications. And if you believe, as we do, that software is going to take over the entirety of our communications in the fullness of time, then this is not a time to be thinking about niches. No, what we need here is new infrastructure for cloud scale communications. And that infrastructure needs to have a few properties. It needs to be global. It needs to be resilient. And it needs to be cost-effective at any scale. And so you saw those primitives that Rob just showed you. Network traversal, endpoints, conversations. Well, we believe these are the new primitives of communications. The new primitives representing media, registration, and signaling. These are the core primitives of software-based communications, and they should be priced as infrastructure to enable building at any scale. And so we launched Network Traversal last fall, and you see the price goes down to just 8 cents per gigabyte of media traversed through our network traversal. And for endpoints, we're charging just 1/100th of a penny per hour that your endpoints are connected to Twilio. That's one primitive. The other primitive, conversations, signaling, we're also charging just 1/100th of a penny per event. So you start up a phone call, we're not charging you per minute, we're charging you 1/100th of a penny to send the message to initiate that phone call. And we believe this represents the economics of scale for the future of communications. Let me show you how it compares. We tried to figure out for various use cases, how do these different business models compare? And so we played out a few scenarios. The first scenario might be like, the app I just wrote, enabling somebody to have a 1 hour per day of HD video conversation. And we said, what would the monthly cost be to enable that use case? Well, with that carrier model, it would cost you $7.20 per user to enable that use case for the month. It's a lot of money. The SaaS use case, the SaaS business model, that use case would cost $1.60 per month to enable. And you might be saying, $1.60, that's not very expensive. Well, you know what? With Twilio, it costs just 12 cents a month to enable that use case. Infrastructure pricing. Let's look at another use case. We just saw Zendesk, right? Let's say you want to enable a call center, 6 hours a day of audio conversations. With that carrier business model, charging you per minute, whether you're using video or not, they don't even care, $28 a month to enable just audio calls with that model. With the SaaS business model, it's $1.60. But with Twilio, this use case costs just 21 cents per month, 6 hours a day of HD audio. But then we said, all right, what's the worst possible scenario? 24/7 HD video streaming. Can't get more expensive than that. On that carrier business model, that would cost you $172 a month per user to enable that use case in your application. The SaaS business model, $26.72 But with Twilio, the worst case scenario, $2.73 for 24/7/30 HD video streaming. And so I think the key, thank you. And so I think the key thing here is no matter what your use case is, no matter how your usage patterns evolve with your users, in every case, Twilio, our infrastructure pricing, wins by 1 or 2 orders of magnitude over anything else that's been seen in the market to date. And that's because we don't even know what many of the use cases are that you're going to build. And so we want to price in a way that works at any scale. See, scaling isn't just technology, scaling is also the business model. And that's why we want to enable the next generation of what you are going to build. And so you see with the real-time communication suite, we have an IP video product, IP voice product. Wait, there's one thing missing here. What is it? Oh yeah, chat. Chat's the third leg of communications. Voice, video, text. And so we figure that you're going to go build that yourselves. You know, it's easy, just open a socket, shove some strings over the socket. You know, that's easy enough. And then your users want it on all the different platforms, and then they want it to operate at cloud scale, and then they want you to, you know what, it's not that easy. So we're launching our IP messaging product as well today. That's right, the complete suite you need to build the future of communications in any medium, video, voice, or messaging. Let me show you this product. First of all, it is a modern communications experience, what you'd expect from the consumer apps you use. It enables you to build apps that work across iOS, Android, and the web, of course. It's multi-party, so you can, just like our Conversations API, have as many parties as you want in every one of these chats. It synchronizes all the content to the cloud, so this means that you can have multiple devices, or if you get a new device, it'll resync all the history back down to that device. This also enables you to do offline delivery. Right? If you're not there, you get the message when you log back in via push notifications. We'll actually let you know you've got a message waiting. We've got encryption, we've got typing indicators to let you know the other person is typing, read indicators, and a really cool thing we call the consumption horizon. This is where you have multiple participants, and we show you where every participant has read to in the history of the conversation. And so that is the IP messaging product that we're announcing today. Beta sign-up opens today. We want you to come. We want you to build any medium of communication, anything you can imagine. That's what we're here for. And that's why we're building this infrastructure for cloud scale communications. Twilio is powered by you, the doers, the builders, the engineers, the developers. We can't wait to see what you build with the tools that we're launching. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic time at Signal. Love those hack packs. Hack them up. Enjoy They Might Be Giants. Have a fantastic time the next few days. Let's hit it. Thank you.